we're going to round it and say 1:05 each. It's 1.34, so I'm just going to say 1:05 each. And I'm going to do a timer. Well, I'm going to say 1:05, and then I've got, because they have to give their name and address, so that'll give them the.
That's perfect. I hope that I just forgot. But I just wanted to make sure that we didn't include it. I remember that. Because there was one that they wanted, but they didn't.
I'm just picking on you.
So I don't remember. Now the other one, like I said, it could have just. And that's what I wish I had last place.
Everybody up here? Barb made it on time.
I know she'll have those. Can they just be?
Okay, I've got time.
Can they just be? It doesn't matter to me. But I just wanted to make sure they were actually on there.
Everybody. Call this March 9th meeting of the Williamson County Board of Commissioners to order. At this time, we'll have the invocation led by Commissioner Paul Webb and the pledge to the flags led by the Sheriff Dusty Rhodes. Everyone, please stand.
Let's pray. Gracious God, we stand before you tonight to give thanks for all the blessings we have received. Lord of compassion, we are humbled by the power of nature, so we pray to you to surround those being affected by the deadly tornadoes in our area. Please hold everyone in your grace, that they be comforted by your love and the love of salvation. Help and guide all those working to rebuild their lives and those that are mourning the loss of their family and friends. We want to especially give thanks, Lord, for our public servants working to help with the devastation of the storms they cared for the injured, help with a massive cleanup and begin the rebuilding of lives. Lord, help them as they were away from their families, helping others in need. Mighty and merciful God, we praise you today for guiding our doctors, nurses, and all the medical staff as they help our neighbors that are injured in the storms, and also for being on the front lines to help us deal with the coronavirus around us. Please, dear Lord, we pray for you to make the sick and injured healthy, the broken whole, and share your love and grace with all of us. Lord, we ask for your help and guidance over this commission tonight as we do the work of our citizens. So please, dear Lord, whose love is everlasting, hear our prayer in our Savior's name. Amen.
Amen. Please recite after me as we start our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to silence your cell phones. I haven't done that to mine either. If you would, please silence your cell phones. Okay. At this time, we'll have roll call. If everyone is present, please press your yes button. Is roll call up?
I'm here. You're here.
Jennifer? You trying?
You okay?
There we go. Call the roll, please.
23 present, one absent, Commissioner Bobby Bill.
Yes, and he is out of town. So, next we have approval of the minutes. These were emailed to you. At this time, we'll entertain a motion. The motion by Steve Smith, the second by Commissioner Osburn. Are there any revisions, additions, or changes? Hearing none, everyone in favor of the minutes, say I approve. Aye. Everybody opposed? Thank you. Getting tongue-tied already. We're just starting. All right, next we have citizens' communications. We have 29 people signed up. We have a 30-minute period allotted, so that gives you 1 minute and 5 seconds each. We will keep a timer. We will be as lenient as we can. We ask everyone when you step up to please give your name and address for the record, and then we will start your time. So first we have on the list is David Logan.
My name is David Logan. I live at 1016 West Main Street in Franklin. I've been a Williamson County resident for 44 years. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been elected to represent the interest of approximately 238,000 residents of Williamson County. And this is a very daunting task, I'm sure you know. And you are charged to give judgments and recommendations based on the information that you get. And the big question is, are you getting accurate information? You've been told that over the next 20 years, our population will grow anywhere from 300 to 327,000 additional residents. That comes to over 15,000 new people average every single year for the next 20 years. Our current average is 6,000 residents, with 2016 having the highest number of new residents of 7,286. That is phenomenal growth that I'm not sure I believe. Back in 2016, you were told by Mason Bice of Titchler and Bice that we were going to get 2,500 new students in our school system every year for the next 5 years. We're only getting 1,000 students right now. So you've been misled before by the numbers. I pray that you'll push this forward long enough to get accurate figures about what you're going to vote on tonight.
Please.
And delay it. Thank you.
Next, we have Laura Turner.
Laura Turner, 1108 Dickinson Lane, Franklin, Tennessee. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. I know you're used to seeing me, but not so much the sea of people here to witness this very historic vote regarding the future of our county. I appreciate this agonizing decision for you, and thank you for your due diligence. The overwhelming majority of citizens, taxpayers, support the town and country choice, as noticed by the signs. For over a year, the county has been working on the Williamson 2040 land use plan. The Johnny-come-lately protests of some realtors, home builders, and landowners are disingenuous and specious. Maybe they thought that town and country choice would not get traction, or maybe they'll postpone tactics was in their playbook all along. Those protesting about their property rights should understand that their rights end where taxpayers' pocketbooks begin. Growth simply does not pay for itself, and we're finally realizing that they do not want their pockets picked to subsidize never-ending school building and other infrastructure to satiate the avarice of self-serving special interests. In 2001, Scenic America, a national group solely dedicated to preserving and enhancing the scenic character of America's communities and countryside, named the Harpeth River Valley one of the top 10 most endangered places in America.
5 seconds, please.
That was only 2 years ago. Your vote tonight has been a long time coming. Thank you very much.
Robert Peterman.
Bob Peterman, 720 Wild Timber Court, Franklin 37069. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you so much for all you do. I'll dispense with most of my narrative and just point out that I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Keep Williamson County Livable team. You may be aware of a petition supporting the town and country option that we posted online in late January. We've been stunned by the response to this. As of this evening, 1,552 of your constituents have signed the petition. To put that in context, that number is 30% greater than the votes any of us received who ran for the county commission in May 2018. But let's not let this all be about property values tonight. The real issue here is about the quality of life and opportunities for the next generation in Williamson County. Please honor the wishes of the vast majority of your constituents and protect our future by endorsing the town and country plan. Thank you.
DeLacy Belafant.
My name is DeLacy Belafont. I live at 8443 Belafont Road in College Grove, Tennessee. My family has owned property in Williamson County for over 200 years. We have approximately 300 to 400 acres. We're not asking you to do anything but slow down this vote so that you give others and large landowners in this county the opportunity to let you hear what we truly have to say. I don't think it's been thought about enough. I didn't even find out about this vote until about 3 weeks ago. I have property for sale now, approximately 100 acres, and it will hurt me tremendously if I have a survey done then I've wasted money if you all change this vote tonight. And I ask that you please give us the chance to at least slow it down, not say 5 acres. Let's meet in the middle and see if we can't work something out.
Ginger Sherling.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I appreciate the process that we have all been through. I was involved with the initial 2007
Please
comprehensive.
state your name and address for the record,
Oh,
please.
thank you, Tommy. Ginger Sherling, 2227 Osburn Road, Arrington, Tennessee. I am a 7th generation Williamson County citizen. We are working on the 8th. So, I was involved with the initial 2007 comprehensive plan. This new update has encouraged even more citizen input. In fact, the entire 2-year process was driven by the demands and the responses of the public. The citizens have been almost unanimous in asking for a return to the 5-acre zoning plus increased safeguards. Any individual who did not know about the public sessions apparently was not focused on their community. This entire process has been very open to the community output. I'd also like to mention that I am representing 42 landowners from the southeastern part of the county, mainly Arrington, Triune, and College Grove.
5
These-
seconds, please.
These larger landowners hold over 3,000 acres. Some want to sell, some wish to hold their land. All of these landowners believe strongly that we can protect their property values by returning to the 5-acre zoning. Good
Time.
planning protects everyone. Thank you.
Curry? Christian, is it Curry or
Close enough.
Okay. I couldn't if it was Kearney or,
Christian Curry, 1045 Sneed Road, Franklin, Tennessee. My name is Christian Curry, and I live at 1045 Sneed Road on 282 acres, zoned 1 house per acre, 11 miles south of downtown Nashville. We have been here since '77. My father, Brownlee Curry, and I support the town and country zoning. I've reached out to over 64 landowners that total 6,083 acres, primarily from the west part of the county that support town and country zoning. Many of the property owners in the northwest area have current SIC 1 unit 1 acre zoning. They all firmly believe that their property will continue to appreciate more because of town and country zoning. We are here on this historic night because of our current zoning has resulted in $800 million in debt and rising for all Williamson County taxpayers. This is not a landowner issue anymore. This is a Williamson County taxpayer issue, and common sense must prevail. This county has been analyzing the current land use plan since 2017 traffic study report and have put tremendous effort and had extensive public input in the new land use plan. Do not let misinformation, short-sightedness from
5 seconds.
3 groups, realtors, home builders, and out-of-state developers provide guidance. There's a farm saying that resonates with this land grab. Pigs get fat,
Time,
hogs
please.
get slaughtered.
Christine Seltzer?
Setzer.
Setzer, excuse me.
That's okay. Hi there, everybody. My name is Christine Setzer, 815 Sneed Road West, Franklin, Tennessee. I moved here about a little over 10 years ago, and I don't want to live anywhere else. And I live here because it's beautiful, and I want to keep it that way. And I think the mass land grab of overdevelopment is sort of ruining our lands and the historical areas especially in the southwestern sort of part of Franklin. The areas of like Old Natchez Trace and Old Hillsborough Road, to see a subdivision on these streets or anywhere in those surrounding areas would just literally be criminal. People come here, they drive down these streets on weekends, and they're the streets why people move here in general because of their beauty. You know, not that long ago, the Ryman Auditorium was going to be torn down for development. And thank goodness that wasn't. And I really just think we need to take a breath and see the peace and quiet in the pastures and the forest for the trees, pun intended. Thanks.
Shayla King.
Hello, I'm Shayla King, 6330 Cox Road, Arrington, Tennessee. I've lived in the county for 38 years. My husband and his family have lived here more, and we're my in-laws, builders, Bill King. Jeff was a builder. We understand the building process. We've had a farm for 20 years in Arrington, and our entire business plan was to have a business that our family could all do, our children could be part of. And we don't make a lot of money. We really don't. We've worked our 20 years. We've raised our children. We've cleaned stalls every Christmas day because our employees have to get off. And most of the time, we don't have employees because it's Williamson County. It's very hard to find labor in Williamson County. Okay? Our entire retirement is based on our land value. And you're taking that individual right away from us. There are things in place to allow the individual to put it in a conservation. You can zone your own land for 5 acres. That's fine. Do not take the rights of the individual away. Don't let the people in the urban both boundary, their property is going to be worth more.
Please. Time, please.
Thank you. Please, take more time.
Mack Roberts. I'm sorry. Mack Roberts, yes.
I don't have a prepared speech, but I'm glad to be able to speak to the commission.
State your name and address for the record, please.
I'm sorry. I'm Mack Roberts, 4860 Murfreesboro Road, Arrington. And we have a farm out there, and also the people next door to us are selling theirs, which we've both got a contract on ours. And this has been going on for about 2 years, and the developer's gone through all kinds of hoops, and between the two farms, he spent over $200,000, and if it's not grandfathered in, it's going to be bad on all of us. But I think the way it is now, I mean, I think it needs to be backed up and given some more thought, because I think by the people that do these studies, they've given some wrong information out. But would appreciate your consideration to stop and rethink it and sort of slow down on this deal and not just run it through. But I appreciate speaking. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Jordan Vaughn.
Jordan Vaughn, 801 Caledonian Court, Franklin 37064. I'm the president of the Williamson County Association of Realtors, and we know that the growth and infrastructure is a problem here in Williamson County, and we are interested in how we maintain our local rural character, enhance our outstanding schools, and remain a desirable location for national businesses and local entrepreneurs. We are concerned that a move to larger lots makes most of the county one big gated community for only the well-off. We're asking you to consider, what about the teacher who's working each day to keep our schools strong and prepare the next generation of leaders? What about the next generation of farmers that helped to make this land desirable in the first place? And what about the blue-collar worker that wants to live in the community that they work in? We don't want to drive away the people who are making this county outstanding. We have been told that the only two paths that the county can take is business as usual and town and country approach, and we disagree with that. We believe that there are other approaches that should be considered along with these other two to maintain the rural development that we have here, but also protect these landowner rights who have invested so much already in the county they live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Bond.
I'm Dan Bond, live at 1660 Lewisburg Pike. Born and raised right here in this county. I've spent my entire working life farming Williamson County land. I've been a landowner in this county for 50 years plus. Like many of the farm owners of this county, milked a lot of cows and raised a lot of tobacco to try to pay for this land. I'm very happy with all the zoning that's taken place in this county over the years. It's amazing to me what a wonderful county we have because of that. But I feel very strongly y'all are moving way, way too fast. Need to slow down and let us have a little input. Maybe I've slept or maybe I worked too hard, but I knew very little or nothing about what you all have been doing. But we basically own a tract of land on 6814 Bethesda Arno Road. We purchased it back in the 70s. It's been zoned RD1 for over 40 years, the best I can find out.
5 seconds, please.
Make a long story short, we asked for you to slow down, take your time. Some of the people that want things to slow down, that can be bought tonight. If some of you commissioners want to buy it, we'll gladly let you put your money into it. Thank you.
Sandy Porter.
Good evening. Sandy Porter. I live at 2224 Osburn Road in Arrington. I moved here like many folks probably in this group 33 years ago because we had 2 young boys and we wanted to get into the school system. My husband and I at the time both were country people and we loved the rural area. I am blessed to have had a neighbor who would have been 100 years old today, but she put her property into a land trust, which is now my view for my front porch. I have a land trust behind me, and I am truly, truly blessed. You can't put a dollar figure on that. And once these properties are turned into subdivisions, you can't go back. I'm blessed to be where I am, and I just ask that town and country is what I'm supporting.
Perry Osburn.
Hope I can see these notes here. My name is Perry Osburn. I live at 1070 Osburn Hollow Road on Osburn Hollow Farm, which is right off of Osburn Road. So our family settled there in 1805. So we have 633 acres there. Part of it's in the land trust, and we support the town and country concept. Robert Osburn, his name's on the courthouse, so our roots run really deep, and we just love the feel of Williamson County, the rolling hills, and really the great people too. So my Ginger's is 9th generation of our family. We strongly support this. I totally reject the idea that the values are going to go down with the RD1, with the RD5. I think the values will go up dramatically, and we don't need any more gridlock. We don't need any more congestion. We don't need any more alternative septic systems. Just go through Nolensville at 5 o'clock. That's what we don't need anymore of. Thank you.
Embry Blackwell.
I'm Embry Blackwell. I live at 9235 Horton Highway, College Grove, Tennessee. I've been there for 76 years, so I don't see any need of moving anywhere else. My great-great-great-grandparents moved into Williamson County in 1810, and we've been here ever since. When Dad passed away in 2007, he owned 675 acres, 500 of it being in Williamson County. It has now been divided among his four sons, and I happen to be the largest landowner with 270 acres. I do support this plan. I do not feel like it will suppress my land value any whatsoever, but it's not for sale. If you want to do any changing, instead of putting it 1 to 5 acres, make it 1 to 50 acres. Thank you.
Clay Crowell.
Clay Crowell, 6246 Lampkins Bridge Road, College Grove, Tennessee. We have 400 acres in the Arrington community, and I've been working on that farm since I was a kid, old enough to carry a basket of eggs, 10,000 chickens in 1960, 500 head of cattle in 2000, rode 2,000 rows of hay a year, 17,000 square bales in the 90s that we put up. Why do we work this hard? Why do we work 8 days a week and long hours to get compensated for our work when we get ready to sell the farm? This comprehensive land plan will just knock the feet out from under us. I wish y'all would do a compromise of some kind, 2 to 3 acre lots or something, but we just can't, you know, we just feel like we've worked this hard all these years for nothing, you know, and it will decrease our values by 50%, 40 to 50%, and all the work after all these years, it's
5 seconds, please.
So I look for a compromise. Make the lots wider in subdivisions. You know, there's got to be another answer besides 5 acre lots.
David Aldridge. Did I say that? Is it Eldridge, E-L-D-R-I-D-G-E, Horton Highway? David? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Randall Smith?
Thank you for your time this evening. I'm Randall Smith at 499 Jones Parkway. I don't, as David said, David Logan stated, don't believe all the statistics that have been put before you. You're either growing or dying. And fortunately, this county is on the better end of that. We're growing. I've been a resident since 1999, and I care about the future of this county greatly and look forward to my daughters hopefully being able to afford a piece of property in this county. And what I see you're doing is no different than if we made our Williamson County school system pass a law that said to go to the school here, you got to wear one of these Vineyard Vine shirts. Because my appraiser unequivocally has convinced me that property values are 100% correlated to increased density means increased value, decrease in density means decrease in value. I ask that you look at your statistics better and understand that property rights also stand for something. And it's really not fair that a group before you, and many of us that own many acres, are voted on with what we can do with our property. As you can see, there's a large support here. On the website, williamsonland.com, just as the others said, they have a substantial group opposing this. Just in 3 weeks, we have hundreds that have voiced for not in favor of town and country. But town and country can live together with smart growth. We ask you to slow down and let's get a better plan. Thank you.
Deborah Bell.
I believe she left.
Deborah Bell. Okay. Troy Mizell.
My name is Troy Mizell. I live at 4113 Murfreesboro Road. Everybody, when you have unknown, you have change, it breeds fear. And I see in the room tonight a lot of fear and a lot of emotion. I don't have red or yellow on. I'm in both camps, and I'm struggling. I love the community. I am very much for property owners. I'm very much for the charm. That's why I brought my family here. I'm both a resident, I'm a landowner, I own businesses, and I just don't want to see it destroyed. And I don't know if this is the entire answer. I don't like to be told as a landowner what to do with my land. I can't tell you with everything I'm heard if my land will be devalued. I'm more concerned about taking care of the schools, taking care of the roads. If this is a means to save our community and keep it as it is, that's fine. I've heard numbers that say 75% of the county is already zoned at this same rate. I'm not sure. But I know the one thing I find myself is perplexed. I don't see all the numbers. I don't know it all. I don't have a complaint. I feel for you that have to make the decision. So I hope that you guys can use this and some other methods available to you. I personally have a huge problem with the conservation development. I think that's where you get the cluster developments, and that kills the beautiful charm of the country. Thank you.
Pat Garmez? Garmezy, thank you, sorry.
I'm Pat Garmezy, and I live at 2275 Lewisburg Pike with my husband Andy. Lots of dogs, horses, you know, chickens, cattle. I've been very blessed to live here 40 years, and we're in the Bethesda area, so when we first moved here, we got off at Goose Creek. Some of you probably know that. Well, of course, an 840 came in, and we get off at 840. Now we're going to have a new Buckner Lane coming in about a mile from my driveway. And I have to tell you, we can't get out of our driveway right now if we leave. Until we leave at 6:15, we might be able to get out. And I might need a stoplight if this growth continues. And I know you all have worked so hard on all of this. I have gotten to know you, some of you anyway, over this last year. I was in this very room last February for a planning commission meeting. I have to say I'm 66 years old, and I'm proud to say that, but I'm not proud to say that was the first time I came into this room. And I saw and witnessed probably 35 or 40 of my neighbors come up here, do their 3-minute thing about the rabbit farm and how much they loved our area, and they were like wanting to get involved, and it was too late. The rabbit farm has gone, we're going to have that, and there was nothing they could do. I'm asking you all not to give it any more time. You've been working on this for the last 3 years. Please, let's preserve the country in town and country. Thank you.
Pete Mosely.
Now, Mr. Little, I'm a little slower thinking, a little slower talking. If I run over, handcuff me and drag me out. I'm Pete Mosely, 9627 Clovercroft Road, unincorporated Williamson County. Until I was 70 years old, I was a 5th-generation farmer here in Williamson County. I have a daughter with 6th generation and 2 grandsons and 7th generation live here in Williamson County. My grandfather and grandmother and my father and mother worked their whole lives to buy and pay for a 400-acre farm in one of the fastest growing areas of the nation. You people saying it needs to be devalued and slowed down. Let's do a little math. Our 5 land sells for about $1,200 an acre. Our 1 land sells for $2,900 an acre. That's about a 70% drop, 60% drop in value. All right? If we sell the land, Uncle Sam's going to charge us capital gains. That's 22, 23%. That gets up to 82% of the value of the land gone. If we sell the land, we've got to hire a real estate agent, a surveyor, a lawyer, and an accountant. That's another 12%. So that means we're down to 6%, or 4%. We're down to 4% of my grandmother and granddad's mother and father's working life.
5 seconds, please.
Divide that between 5 people, and that's only 4/5 of a percent we get. That's worse than bank interest. People, this is wrong. Is a 3-acre lot in unincorporated Williamson County a non-conforming lot, or is it a lot of record? Have y'all read through this record? Can you pay for the roads? Can you pay for the sewer systems going to these places? Can you pay for the walking trails?
All right, time, please.
Slow down and look at what you're voting on, people.
Dudley Smith. Monte Makins, D&D, okay. I got it.
Dudley Smith, 1221 Clifty Drive, Brentwood, Tennessee. I think town and country is a great slogan, and and I certainly understand their perspective. But I hate to see that at these folks' expense. There's better ways to do this. I think the devil's going to be in the details if you do this the way you're doing it. It's like pressing an easy button. It's like one size fits all. That's not the right answer. And I think it's going to be very complicated to undo it if in certain areas. So I'm saying there are absolutely areas that need to be protected. But there are areas of this county that need to be preserved for development and to preserve these people's values. And I think what's happening needs to be rethought. Thank you.
Monte Makins.
Monte Makins, 3077 Old Hillsborough Road. I grew up in this community. I'm 57 years old. I was born in Grassland. I love this town. I love Williamson County more than I love my wife more. But I just wanted to say real quick, that this county's beautiful. I've driven all over it. I'm a veterinarian, an equine veterinarian. I know this county better than anybody sitting here. I've been to every inch of it, and I drive it every single day. I can remember where Brentwood had one restaurant, Grassland had one service station. I can remember all that, okay? And it's happening so quickly, and we're developing so quickly. I'm here tonight to applaud you for saying, hey, we need a plan. We need a plan to hopefully slow this thing down because it's getting out of hand. Suburban estate, 5-acre lots was was the norm many years ago. I don't know actually know how that even changed. Who changed that? That's a good thing. It's not going to devalue our property by doing that. I applaud you for having the faith to stand up and say we need a plan so we can save our county and preserve the land that we love. Thank you.
Nick Shuford.
Good evening, Nick Shuford, 8209 Alamo Road, Brentwood. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Thanks for your time. I'm here tonight speaking in advocacy for our Williamson County Association of Realtor membership and a ton of landowners throughout the county that are pretty nervous about what's potentially about to happen. The response we've gotten from these individuals is really concerning, and the results of what's going to happen if this passes and the things that we don't know that are going to come about this if this does pass are very concerning. The results could be very detrimental to our county. And so what we're asking is, let's meet in the middle, guys. There's so many options that we can talk about. As a realtor, we're on the front lines of this growth that's coming into our county, and it is unprecedented growth that is not slowing down, okay? And we need to band together and do something about it. There's no question this growth has produced a number of issues, but the planning for the future should entail more options and consideration than this one land use proposal provides. I encourage this board to send a message with your decision tonight, one that supports the efforts of our county to attract more businesses and workers to Williamson County, that says to our landowners that we hear your voices and we respect your property rights in the interest of all things that make Williamson County great. Business as usual and town and country are not our only two options. Let's slow this vote down, please. Thank you.
Lee Thornton.
Good evening. I am a resident of Williamson County.
State your address for the name and address.
I will. 6279 Meeks Road. I also own a property in downtown Franklin. I'm a horse girl, I wanted to find land in Williamson County. That's why I moved here. And I couldn't get it before the developers would move in and maximum density housing would go up. So I have 7.5 acres, and I'm grateful for that. But what I want you all to understand is I know people who want land, who have money. $4 million was offered for a 70-acre parcel on Nolansville Road by horse people who wanted to have a horse farm, keep it open. And it was declined because they wanted to raise the price. I'm not saying that if you're a landowner that you should be denied that right to sell your land and have maximum density housing, but I think where you're misled is that it's not going to increase in value. There are people who want to move here, and they want to move here, and they have money. They are coming from communities where land is actually really valued. If you come from California, you want to buy land. You don't want the crowds and the density and the driving that is, it's getting crazy to be here.
Time, please.
So I think there are misconceptions, and if you all need to take your time to hear everybody, that would be great. Thank you.
Stuart Moore.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Stuart Moore. I live at 7716 Caney Fork Road, Fairview, 37062. That's my mailing address. I'm in the county. Tonight, I've been listening to everybody, and I'm hearing money, environment, quality of life. Money in the pocket or quality of life. To me, this issue is an issue of sustainability. No water, no life. The Harpeth River in a drought year goes dry. This is an issue of sustainability, and a decision that is made tonight will have repercussions 100 years down the road to the people that come behind us. And if you look at ecosystems all over the planet, they rely upon diversity, water, clean air, plant life, fauna, you name it. This is a sustainability issue. We need to be looking down the road 4 and 5 and 6 generations. And if we'll do the right thing, town and country, 100 years from now, they'll want to come here just to get some fresh air and get out in the country, because Rutherford County and all the surrounding counties will look like Atlanta. If you want to know what this is going to be in 100 years, go visit Atlanta and hang out for 4 or 5 days and see if your blood pressure doesn't go through the roof. Thank you for the opportunity.
Aaron Davis.
My name is Aaron Davis. I live at 7389 Hunting Camp Road in Fairview. It's part of the unincorporated part of Williamson County. Anybody that says that property values are devalued in this county hasn't looked at property values lately. Has anybody tried to buy a place here lately? They're not going down, they're going up. And it's because of the way this county is, the way the land spanses and the wildlife, all of that makes Williamson County what it is. And I found a proverb that I think applies to this. It says, "A society grows great when old men and women plant trees in whose shade they know they shall never sit." And that's our responsibility, to take care of this county, take care of the natural wildlife, take care of the open spanses, not only for us, whom I believe in town and country, but also somebody that might be short-sighted. It's our responsibility to take care of it for them too. Town and country. Thank you.
Jim Heissen.
Good evening. Jim Heissen, 4468 Savage Point Drive in Franklin. As a resident and local business owner, I understand the desire to preserve the beauty and sanctity of our rural community. I'm concerned that the rezoning to 5-acre minimum across the board will not preserve the rural character of our community. Taking the open fields and farms and building large homes across the countryside will not achieve this goal. There is a better way from clustering, fostering high density in hamlets, and utilizing transfer development rights to preserve farmlands as better stewardship. Strict regulations are already in place just to get a parcel entitled. Before you begin, a 150-foot buffer from the road is required. Traffic impact studies significantly reduce development in areas where roadways are congested. Step systems not only require adequate drainage, but also require space, including a 300-foot buffer surrounding it. Storm detention and water quality to pre-development flow reduce this further, not to mention the rock and hillside in the areas we deal with. When it is all combined, rarely is a 1 acre unit per unit acre possible. We implore,
5 seconds, please.
we implore you to take more time to evaluate all aspects before making such an important decision. Thank you.
John Powell.
Good evening, Commission. My name is John Powell. I live at 1301 Ashby Valley Lane in Kings Chapel. I developed Kings Chapel. We have approximately 600 acres. 350 were left in open space for the wildlife and the water and the people. I see tonight, I see on one side a group of people that may have been given their land hundreds of years ago. And it's great that they want to preserve, and it's great that they put it in land trusts. But I see this side of the room where people have worked for their property. They know what the zoning has been, and they want to sell it. They should be allowed to sell it. You should find a way. You have a great planning staff and a great planning commission. They should find a way to mitigate both these sides. My own experience, I've never met Mr. Roberts, but I was helping the developer on their subdivision because it is contiguous to Kings Chapel. I was allowed to put my input in. I also know that in December, after a year, and Mr. Roberts is right, over $200,000 has been spent on his property and another property with just 50 lots. It's not, we were told in December that this zoning was happening. I consider myself fluent and try to keep up on things. I kept up on the triune change. I had no idea this was happening. And neither did the developer, neither did the Roberts or the Hills or the Foxes. No one knew this was happening. So
5 seconds, please.
you have a great planning staff, a great planning commission. Send it back, delay your vote, let them figure out something that works. There's conservation subdivisions that are great, that allow for open space, and that's what I did. And hope you delay.
That concludes citizens' communication. Thank everyone for your civility. Moving on with the agenda. Next, we have reports of county communications and messages. We'll have some more stuff later on. We are going to move the agenda around a little bit, so that will be coming. I will get to that here shortly. Next, we have Rogers, a report of county mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On your desk, you should have a revised agenda. We are asking a little later, after we go through some things, to move up this resolution on town and country, so these people don't have to sit here all evening. The other thing that is on your desk under the revised agenda,
Okay, Okay, yeah,
we've got 4 late file resolutions that I'm asking Nina to come on up, and Sam Cruz and Jeff to explain them. But the nuts and bolts of the following resolutions: 3/2026, 3/2027, 3/2028, and 3/2029, all 4 late file resolutions. So last week, during the week, you all had authorized us to sell and refinance some Build America bonds that started out at about 25 years under the last President of the United States authorization. We did that, You authorized us to do some refinancing. Last Friday, we mailed out to you the results of that refinancing that occurred on the two resolutions. One resolution being about $12 million that we got 0.91 money on, and on another resolution of about $14 million, we got 0.9293. That's extremely below the market. A lot of that even today. Many of you have been following the stock markets and the way that has gone. Many of us will be working a long time to make up these losses over the last 7 days. Nobody's pleasant with that. Hopefully it'll stable down. It's become a little bit more stable. So it's our intent tonight to bring before you for these 4 late file resolutions to take advantage of what we think bond counsel and both Jeff and Sam and Nina have put together all over the weekend. We've worked to try to get an authorization for you all to look at us taking advantage of the markets. Last week, the Feds dropped the money market, the amount that they loaned was 0.5. There's some discussion going on. It may be another 0.25 or 0.5. Regardless of that, we want to be in a position to take advantage of that strictly because of what the schools have got before you over the next year to a year and a half. We have got in the neighborhood, and come on up, Sam, you guys, Nina. I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit because you need to know this. 2 of you object to it. That's the end of it. But you need to understand what you're saying no to, because we've got to go back to the market and borrow more money later in the year. We're not guaranteed this, but it is a good opportunity for us to look at it. We've not done one like this. These late file resolutions when it comes to bonds. But the bottom line of it is, all of you know that we've got to borrow about $80 to $100 million over the next year to pay for schools and lands and some of the other things. Sam or Nina, you all want to get a little deeper into it? Many of you know Sam Cruz, who is with Stevens, and he kind of helped us guide us through the weekend.
So I will say it's been a very historic few days in the markets, and I've heard the phrase a lot. I've never seen anything like this before, over and over, especially in the bond markets, where the 10-year Treasury bond is now like around 0.5%, which, it's hard to explain what's been happening, but it's related to two things. The coronavirus has been very much in the news, and there's generally a concern, just a public health concern about the coronavirus, but then there's an ancillary concern about the effect it's having on the economy. And it's not just the virus, it's the fear of the virus that's rippling through the economy. And then concerns about what it's going to lead, how long it's going to last. Can it affect the election cycle next year? What's that going to mean for the economy? So there's just a lot of things, and I think the best way to describe the bond market is it's panic buying. In the stock market, there's some panic selling. In the bond market, there's panic buying, which has driven the rates down, very dramatically and very quickly. And as the mayor said, when we did the refinancing 5 days ago, which seems like a couple months ago now, we haven't seen rates below 1% for the county for anything more than a year, maybe ever. So that triggered the mayor's inquiry about, does it make sense to try and accelerate some borrowing that we know we're going to have to do later in the year? And so I didn't really think there was enough time, but either the comptroller's office, who has to approve part of this or at least report on part of this, did in 1 day what they normally take 15 days to do. So kudos to them. So they got the paperwork in order for this to be even considered tonight. So I guess I'll just leave you with saying I think it's advisable what we're doing, because These are not new projects. These are projects that are in the plan that we've been planning for all along. We've been budgeting rates at 3.5% to 4%. We're looking at rates at 2% or less on long-term money. And I will say the market's very volatile, and we probably won't be able to access it for 2 or 3 weeks, and things can change. But the general tone right now is it's a great time for people who need to borrow money. So.
We did not, just for a point of information, we did not get, this has happened so fast, we were not able to get revised agendas out. They will be, it is resolutions 3-20-26-27-28, 29. They are all on your desk. And so when we get through with reports, I'll be asking for permission to hear those tonight. But no, we're not able to get revised agendas out.
So if I could, Mr. Chairman, address some of the hands or the buttons that are being pushed. The resolution itself is not on the floor, so it's not discussion for that. You're going to have to authorize us to put it onto the floor on the late file as we normally do. If you decide, if we have no objections, and it's built into the program that you'll be listening to. But if there are any questions about whether to advance this, I would ask you ask Sam or myself. Otherwise, I'll give the regular reports, and then you can go back to the late files.
All right. Greg, is this about?
Yeah. All right. I have some specific questions, so
okay.
I'll save them.
You're going to save them? All right.
I guess I have them.
Well, the actual resolution will be brought back to you.
Okay. So, did you have
tonight?
Okay. All right. Go ahead with the report.
You want to go ahead and get it up on your late file, and then I'll get into my report?
All right. Well, we have 4 late filed resolutions. Are there any objections to hearing those? Resolutions 3-20-26, 3-20-27, 3-20-28, and 3-20-29. Are there any objections? They will be added to the agenda, and we will probably move them first on the agenda. So, all right, go on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. If I could, I'll go ahead and ask Nita to come up and give us a snapshot of what's the financial condition of the county. As Nina's getting prepared, I would like to also say thanks to her and her staff and Sam and Jeff for working this weekend to get all this paperwork put together. Jamie and her team, Ashton, were making copies right up to the last moment, and I thank you all for working diligently so we can get this to you. The other thing is, one of the reasons that we're standing here tonight is because of your wisdom and decision over the many years to make this a county, a AAA bond-rated county. There's only 2 in the state of Tennessee. We were first, been there for 12 years, I guess. And it's through the financial stability that we have that we can even stand here before you and do this and take advantage of the market if it comes available to us. You ready, Nina?
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. In your packets tonight, you have our regular monthly reports. The privilege tax collections for the month of January came in a little over $1 million. The education impact fee, total collections, life to date is $50.9 million. Total net collections are $30.9. Total available for projects is $16.1 million. Also in your packet is the Cool Springs Conference Center report for the month of January. We did have a profit of a little over $35,000. Also in your packet is a report from the general manager from the Conference Center. He was not able to be here tonight. It's just to update you on there have been some cancellations of conferences in response to the coronavirus updates. So just want to keep you informed on that as we move forward. That's all of my reports.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Nina.
Mr. Chairman, you'll have an opportunity, as we said, to go over these resolutions. You've also got an opportunity tonight to listen to Kathy Montgomery in the County Health Department in the coronavirus. I will say that you heard Nina say that the Cool Springs Conference Center, which we own half interest in, have back since in the early 90s, along with the city, this coronavirus is penetrating into the very business core that we're looking at here in Williamson County, Tennessee. With the 2 or 3 cancellations, as that letter indicates, they absolutely went from a plus to a minus because these corporations coming into town, booking the rooms, using the conference center, now they're not. And I don't have a solution for that, but we do need some level heads that are penetrating our business market. Under Kathy Montgomery's report talking about the coronavirus, she'll also be bringing up Todd Horton, and I want to say thanks to Todd, and who's our EMA director, who did an outstanding job. Many of us were down at the Public Safety Building last week during the tornadoes. We were all called in. He worked all night. I got there about 2 in the morning. I couldn't be more proud of a group of men and women sitting there watching the screens, listening to the activities, as sad as it was, in Davidson County, Putnam County, Smith County, and that whole corridor up through there, watching our men and women work, and the diligence they put in. And a lot of our information that was coming, we had Brentwood there, Franklin there, we had everyone represented at the table to make the best decisions. And many of those decisions were coming from Nashville down to our operations center. So for you that were around during that period of time, that we built that facility and have got the technology in there to do the things we need to do, I say thank you. I'll entertain any questions, Tom.
Commissioner Beathard?
Mr. Chairman, I see Miss Judy Hayes over there, and I know she's been having some troubles with her knee, and there are a couple of seats here, and she may not be the only one, but with there being empty seats, if there's someone like Miss Judy or anyone else who needs them, if you're sitting next to an empty seat, maybe wave your hand. We have one up here, too, that we could bring down.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say we, on some of the actions that we can try to consolidate the meeting a little bit tighter tonight. As many of you know, we had a resolution in there dealing with the thrift store through the actions of the Franklin Board and Zoning Committee last Thursday night. They did not agree. Their vote was 5-0 against changing the zoning on a piece of property there at the across from the old BGA school. So there was 3 makers of that resolution. I have talked to all 3 of them, and I'll let them say if they want to. But for that resolution to be pulled, Mr. Chairman, as I have recommended, they pull that resolution because we cannot advance any kind of a lease on that piece of property at this time based on that information.
I believe all 3 have agreed to pull, and do you want to speak to the issue? Hang on, just let us get you. Okay, now go.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did receive word that the city of Franklin didn't agree to the rezoning of the property. But I have talked to them since they voted on that, and there's a possibility that this may come up again. So I did want to pull this tonight with the caveat that we might want to bring this back possibly within a few months if the city of Franklin changes their mind. We did get a lot of emails about this. It seemed like even the people in the community that live around there all supported this organization, but some of them didn't want them in their neighborhood, which I really don't understand. I find it hard to understand why we wouldn't want to support an organization that gives jobs to 40 or 50 disabled adults. So hopefully we'll find a way to get them a place soon. So we do want to pull this tonight, but we're going to hopefully be able to possibly bring it back or maybe find them another place.
Does Commissioner Rainey or Commissioner Jones, who signed onto this, wish to say anything at this time?
I agree with that.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we will pull 3/2017 from the agenda. Okay. All All right, next is schools. Go.
Evening, Mr. Chair, Commission. As you all know, when I present on a monthly basis, I could typically tell you about our student numbers, including pre-K through 12. Our current numbers as of February 24th, which is the last time we checked, we're doing it twice a month this time of year, is 41,755. That's a growth of 17 students from that time, basic time in February. So this is, as you know, the time where things tend to get a little bit slower as the year finishes out with moves. I did want to let you all know also, if you haven't heard, that we did close schools Friday and today to do an extra cleaning. We had a number of families obviously very concerned about the coronavirus, which was mentioned to you. We felt like the appropriate thing to do was to let them know we were doing what we could do, which is to go through and clean all the schools, an extra disinfecting process the next couple of days, and school will be open tomorrow. And we are finishing up this week before our spring break. So our plan is, absent some other instructions from the health department or some change, to finish out the school this week. I will tell you that as the mayor mentioned, there is a lot of concern from our families. Many families have expressed concern about that, and that is in part why we made that decision to do that extra cleaning, to do what we could do. But again, the medical professionals are who we ultimately have to trust in their judgments with respect to that. The instructions that we've seen from the CDC and from our local medical professionals, from our perspective, are very similar to flu. The suggestions that they give us, and so we are conveying that information onto our families as we receive those instructions from those professionals with those wise behaviors to reduce the likelihood of a risk. So I felt like it was important to mention that to you. Obviously, you have many things on your agenda. If you have any questions, I'll certainly do my best to answer them.
Commissioner Smith?
Not to Jason, but I think we were going to hear from the health department and
They're coming next.
EMS. Okay.
All right. Commissioner Story?
Quick, so we have a certain number of baked-in days for weather. These days kind of are falling in those already accounted for allotment, right?
That's a good question, Commissioner. And it varies from year to year just a little bit based on our planning with our calendar. But we had, in this particular calendar, 10 inclement weather days built in with some extra instructional time. Every school system in the state and likely the country does something similar. This is a total of 3 days that we have consumed this year, so we had the time. And I've actually spoken to the Commissioner of Education. Of course, we don't know what the future will hold for the rest of the year, but I let her know that we were going to do that as well. And just for your information also, David Snowden from Franklin Special School District made that same decision, so we were on the same schedule these last couple of days.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have a Dr. Andy Russell from Williamson Medical Center. Then we'll go to Ms. Montgomery.
Good evening. My name is Andy Russell. I am an emergency room physician and the chief medical officer at Williamson Medical Center. I've been asked just to speak a little bit about the hospital's preparations for the coronavirus outbreak. In the 16 plus years I've been here, we're constantly preparing for the next outbreak, be it Zika virus or Ebola or anthrax or now coronavirus. We're very strictly following along the CDC and the World Health Organization guidelines. Other things we're doing, just in particular to the hospital, we're starting to restrict access to visitors and other non-essential vendors. People who don't need to be in the hospital, we don't want them in the hospital. That's for the safety of the patients. That's for their own safety as well. Beginning tomorrow, we are starting to funnel everybody through one entrance where they can be screened by staff sitting at the front door. That's going to be employees as well as patients who are coming for clinic visits or outpatient surgery. Our emergency department is functioning as normal. If you're sick and you feel like you need to go to the emergency department, we are ready to handle that at any time. We are making some special allowances for that. Again, we're putting a nurse or a paramedic at the front door of the emergency department to can immediately screen the patients. If the patients are having respiratory symptoms or anything consistent with coronavirus, they're getting a mask, they're getting directed to a certain part of the waiting room if there's not a treatment room available immediately. These are things that we do outside of the norm. Let's see, again, we're redirecting traffic. I think I hit most of the big points. We are prepared if we do have a big influx of patients, which we are fully expecting more coronavirus tests to come back positive. Right now, I know we're up to 4 was the last I heard a couple hours ago when I left the hospital. We fully expect there to be more, not only in Tennessee, but in Williamson County. We prepared to convert a wing of the hospital into basically an isolation unit if need be. Again, we've made preparations to do so, and we're just waiting on the patients to come. Again, basically, we're following the guidelines set forth by the national, international organizations that I mentioned earlier, the CDC and the World Health Organization. If there are any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks so much for your report. Hang on. Commissioner Lawrence pressed his button, so let's go. So press your button if you would to speak. Commissioner Lawrence.
Thank you for being here, Dr. Russell, tonight. I just had a couple of questions. Number one, I've heard that there's a shortage of testing kits. So do we have plenty of those available, or what's the amount of kits that we have?
We have lots of swabs where we can test people. The problem is the labs do not have capacity to test a large number. Up to this point, the Department of Health is the only place that will actually run those tests. So up to now, even if you come to the ER and you've said you've been living in Wuhan, China, and you just got here with a fever, I can't order that test. That has to be ordered by the Department of Health. As earlier today, there are a couple of private labs who say they have testing available. Those are going to have 3 to 4 day turnaround times. And again, they have limited capacity. The number that was thrown out earlier today at a meeting was they'll be able to run 2,500 tests a day across the entire nation. So yes, we have some kits, but just because we have kits doesn't mean that the tests are going to be run, and especially not run in a very timely fashion.
Okay, and it seems like the first patient that got this did a really good job of following a protocol that he stayed out of the emergency room and the clinics around in the hospital. Is that a protocol that somebody who thinks they have this should follow? I mean, if somebody thinks they have it, is there a number they should call at the hospital or in the county somewhere? Where should they go to get tested?
Sure. That's a great question. The CDC and Tennessee Department of Health both have hotlines and information on their website about that. They are recommending that unless you have an emergency need where you need an ambulance, before you show up at an ER, before you show up at your primary care doctors or a walk-in clinic, call the Department of Health hotline number. They have somebody there who will direct you based on your symptoms as to what the next step should be. Like the gentleman you mentioned, contacted the Department of Health. They spoke with him, did a brief interview over the phone, determined that he did require testing. The Department of Health then reached out to the hospital. We were able to coordinate testing of that patient without him having to actually come into the hospital. So we recommend before you show up at your doctor's office or the emergency department, either look at the cdc.gov website or the Department of Health, Tennessee Department of Health, and they have a hotline number on there that can provide further information and somebody that can direct you where to go next.
If I can interrupt just a second. Kath, would you like to add anything to this discussion? Do you want to come on up with him and add to the discussion, or you want to come up after? So, okay, all right, all right. Sorry. We're both talking the same subject, so. Sure. All right, Commissioner Lathers.
No, thank you. Commissioner Lawrence covered it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Kathy, you want to make up your next, if y'all want to come on up. So.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I want to be brief with my comments in the interest of your time tonight. I want to thank Mayor Anderson for his comments earlier about our department and certainly for your unwavering and continued support of our mission that we do every day. As you know, this past Tuesday, your emergency management agency invited emergency services partners and city and town administrators to watch the governor's press briefing regarding the first case of COVID-19 here in Tennessee and specifically in Williamson County. After the briefing, we discussed a number of local response and preparedness efforts across across all jurisdictions. As of this morning, Tennessee Department of Health has confirmed one additional case of COVID-19 in Middle Tennessee, bringing the state's total confirmed cases to 4. Tennessee Department of Health is working closely with local health officials to support the ongoing investigations of COVID-19 cases and their contacts. We stress that the overall risk to the public remains low, as COVID-19 is not currently widespread in Tennessee, the United States, and specifically not widespread here in Williamson County. Our local resident who has tested positive is being monitored daily by regional health officials. Our prayers are certainly with him, his family, and all of those who have been affected across the world. We would like to reiterate that preparedness starts with every individual. There have been a number of guidelines published that everyone has seen now about a variety of ways that you can protect yourself. We encourage individuals to only purchase what they need and only for the amount of people that they care for. If you visit any of our local stores these days, you find that the shelves are completely empty in many of those locations, and we are unnecessarily creating a disaster within a disaster. So we encourage you to be responsible. We understand that there's fears, but fears come, education helps assail fears. We also want to ensure you that our emergency workers and healthcare providers they get their resources from some of these same locations, and they treat and see illnesses of all kind every day. So we would like to leave as many of those available for those who are treating this very infectious disease. In addition to individual preparedness, the CDC website has a variety of preparedness guideline documents available. Interested parties can find these at our website at www.williamsonready.org/coronavirus under the resource section. A number of guidance preparedness documents deal with schools and child care programs, businesses, community and faith-based organizations, large community events and mass gatherings, healthcare settings, first responders, and many others. Information about these guidance documents has been proactively shared with several groups across Williamson County, including our emergency service organizations, United Way, Williamson Inc., Tennessee Wildlife Resource Foundation, Heritage Foundation of Williamson County, our local emergency planning committee, and other organizations. This Wednesday at 12 noon, we will host a White House coronavirus briefing for state and local governments at the Public Safety Center. An invitation will be sent out tomorrow to all of you. As new information is changing daily, we plan to take this opportunity to provide an additional briefing immediately following that of the White House. You can also choose to register yourself and watch it at the convenience of wherever you're located. We continue to work closely with a variety of stakeholders, both locally and across the region. And joining me tonight is Kathy Montgomery, Williamson County Health Department Director, and Lauren Schuster, Nursing Supervisor. And we are certainly here to answer any questions that you may have to the best of our abilities. I will, however, state that in order to maintain patient confidentiality, we will not be able to speak directly about the infected case in Williamson County. I'll entertain any questions.
Are there any questions? I don't see any.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. That concludes our report of county officers, unless there's someone that wishes to make a report. All right. At this time, I would like to deviate from the agenda. I would like to move 33-20-22 up next. Then I would like to do the 4 late filed resolutions because they affect some other resolutions in the packet. Then we will do the land use plan. Then we will go back to the regular agenda. If we have no objections, that's the course we will go. Seeing none. So next we will do, if I can find my own notes. I need to. Yep, I got it. We'll do it right here, like this. Next, we will have Resolution 3-20-22. Resolution accepting a donation of amateur radio equipment from the late estate of late Jim Hayes. Commissioner Aiello? Commissioner Jones, the second. I don't have my sheet in front of me. The committee reports. Law Enforcement Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Property Committee.
7 yes, 0 no.
And Budget Committee.
4-0 no.
Explanation, please.
This is a resolution accepting a donation of amateur radio equipment from the estate of the late Jim Hayes. And at this point, I would like to defer to any commissioner who has a personal relationship with either Judy Hayes or Jim Hayes that would like to talk about what's being donated here and the import of that. if anybody would like to take that mantle.
Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Miss Judy?
Yeah.
Let's invite Judy up to the... If any commissioners are wishing to speak to this, please press your request to speak button.
Thank you very much. It's interesting to be on this side. It looks very comforting over there in my usual seat from years ago. And Commissioner Bryan, thank you very much for your consideration. I'm recovering from an ankle break, and it's easier sometimes to stand than it is to get up and down. So that's why I didn't sit. But thank you so much. Since the late 1800s, when shortwave was identified, and all through the 18 and 1900s, shortwave has saved many lives and brought many people their property back. It's always true that it is a wonderful saving for people and a very good hobby for people, and we have many chances that we get to use it. As far back as the 1800s and as recently as our recent tornadoes, our Katrina, our 9/11, our hurricane in Puerto Rico, you can read and you study many cases where shortwave or the ham brought saving lives and brought much property in saving to the people. My husband Jim was a very avid radio amateur operator. He built his own equipment. He hung his own and built his own towers and his own antennas. And his frequency was very, very strong. He talked to over 100 countries, every country identified he talked to, and has cards to substantiate that. He listened to long hours, and in a couple of cases, he started being a ham when he was 15. And he learned that there was a lot of good things that he could do by listening and by passing information on to others. There was an occasion when he was later in years after we married that he was listening late one evening, and it was during the Vietnam War. And in one case, there had been a young man who had been unidentified and been lost. He was listening one night when he intercepted the passage and was able to pass word to this boy's family that he was alive and well. Another incident, a young man was ready to deploy, and he wanted so much to ask his young lady friend to marry him if he returned. Jim intercepted, and by proxy was able to call the young lady, propose marriage, and he went off his way. It was interesting. We never learned whether he survived. It's hoped they're happy today. But there are many cases that those things are true, and our people were able to intercept. It would be no greater pleasure than for him to know that our emergency management and our shortwave radios were going to the cause to save lives, to save property, and help emergency situations. From the time that he was doing Morse code to the day he died, even though his stroke took much of his shortwave, his short-term memory, he was still able to do Morse code. He and one of the therapists were able to communicate through Morse code, and that was something that stayed with him to the end. I was very proud that Bill Jorgensen came and identified some pieces of property that you from the county and your emergency management could use. And I think it will do great in his honor if you would be willing to accept that, hopefully to bring prosperity, safety, and comfort and protection to all this great county that he loves so much, and to the citizens he loves so much, and so do I. So I hope you will find it in your likes to accept it. And if there's anything else, Bill Jorgensen knows where I am, and he's also looking with the amateur radio operator for Putnam County and other places to see if there are other things that might be used. But it is my pleasure, and I hope that you can receive it. Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would also personally like to thank our former commissioner, Judy Hayes, she served for many years. She was my county commissioner for quite a while, and I still have her phone number on my refrigerator. I do. I appreciate everything she has done for this county in so many ways. This is just one more example. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Well, I would echo those remarks. Jim Hayes and Judy Hayes, both individually and as a couple, have been pillars of this community, this county, for years and years. It was an honor to know Jim and an honor to know and serve on this county commission with Judy. And thank you so much.
Commissioner Osbrooks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Miss Judy, my father is a member of W Cares, WC4DA. In fact, this evening at 7 o'clock, he would have been on a net. So I want to say thank you for the example that you set day in and day out. And thank you because I know that tomorrow morning he will meet with a group of W Cares. They meet every Tuesday morning and have breakfast. So when I go home this evening, I will be sure and tell him that we have acquired some of your late husband's equipment. I know they will be thrilled. Thank you.
Commissioner Lathers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo my appreciation of Judy Hayes. She's become a mentor to me as a young commissioner, and she's a preservationist. Many of you know what she's done, but she's also mentored us to save a house in Nolensville and been so generous. She serves on the Williamson County Convention and Visitors Bureau Board. She continues to serve this county, and this is just another way through the memory of her husband. Thank you so much.
All right, are there any other questions on this agenda, on this resolution? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. All right. It's my turn.
Come on, Tommy. All right, Tom, you call everybody else out.
All right. Anyone wishing to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
23 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Next, we will have late filed resolution 3-20-26. Resolution authorizing the issuance, sale, and payment of not to exceed $29 million of general obligation school bond of Williamson County, Tennessee, and provide for the levy of tax for the payment of debt service on these bonds. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. There was no committee has heard this. Explanation, please.
As you can see, this is the first phase. If you heard the mayor speak earlier about issuing these general obligation school bonds to take advantage of the current market. And again, if there are questions, Nina and Sam Crew are here to answer those questions.
Okay. Commissioner Lawrence? All right. Good. All right. Commissioners, we turn the, and this is just a point of order, we turn the mics on and off. If you would keep your mic down, the more they move, the more shorting and crackling we get. So if you would keep your mic facing it, we will turn you on when you request to speak, and that'll do away with a lot of the static.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for being here tonight, Mr. Cruz and Nina. My questions, I just have two questions. First of all, what interest rate are we actually getting here? And are we essentially opening up a line of credit? Is that what we're doing? So are we going to borrow all this money at one time for these bonds in advance of actually needing them for these buildings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the way you sell bonds is basically in an auction. I mean, it's a public bid process. The refinancing we did last week, there were 10 groups that bid on the bonds, and the bonds are awarded to the best rate. So as far as what rate you're going to get, that's determined in a competitive sale that's set up. I believe it would be 1 something. It's almost hard on a day like today to even get people to sort of commit to what they think they would bid just because the market's so volatile. But it's 20-year, the rate you got of 0.9%, that was 10-year money. These are 20-year money. So, I think it would be in the municipal market in the high ones, basically.
Okay.
Now, I would say, and I said this to the mayor and to Nina as well, I mean, I would be uncomfortable if you were uncomfortable with 2%, because it could be 170, it could be 190, it could be 2%. That's still so much lower than we've been forecasting, when we've run all our models.
Which is what? What have you been forecasting?
We've been forecasting 3.5% to 4% for several years. Usually we've been forecasting 3.5% for a next deal, and then when you get 2 to 3 years down the line, we've been forecasting 4%, kind of as our number, just to be conservative. So, and when you multiply these figures by, like these two issues combined are, when you talk about $80 million, if you can save a couple percentage points a year for 20 years, it's a significant amount of money.
Right. So we expect it to be about half of what we projected, or less?
Yes.
Potentially?
Yes.
Okay. No further
Ms.
questions.
Nina, would you like to address what these bonds are getting for? We're not just borrowing to borrow, so
Right.
what these are.
What this is based on, the first two resolutions, 26 and 27, are new money deals, and you'll have at your desk tonight some handouts. You have the school's 5-year capital improvement plan. The mayor and I sat down with Jason Golden, superintendent, I'm sorry, I want to just say Jason, and Leslie Holman, discussed these projects last week. Just looking at the 5-year CIP, the projects listed to accelerate are the projects listed for 2019, 20, years 2021 and 21-22. So 2 of these resolutions you have before you are intent to funds that they're bringing forward tonight. So if these resolutions are passed, those are kind of mute because they're already included in these bond resolutions. So you have the projects listed are for the major maintenance projects, East Elementary School, South Elementary, ESCO project, other additions, and the Page High School project. So these are projects, large building projects or classroom additions that would be coming to you in the fall. So with the current market as it is, we wanted to present this before you to possibly take advantage of these current rates.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams?
Right, I just want, thank you for the clarification, and just go a little bit further, just so we all understand. Across resolutions 26 and 27, we're looking at $83.6 million of new debt issue, correct?
Yes.
You're right. And that's largely because we've got an interest rate available, and we've got capital improvement projects that we're looking at. And then across resolutions 28 and 29, we're looking at basically refinancing $76.5 million of debt, because we can save a little over $6 million. Over what length of time will those bonds be issued for?
Over
14 years, which is the original term.
All right, so the remaining 14 years of those bonds? Okay, thank you for that.
And the new deal, you do have one of the handouts before you. It has the amount requested and then a percentage in the expedited funding. We have proposed to borrow 75% of the projects, all except for the ESCO deal, and fund the remaining percentage possibly in the fall. That will give us an opportunity to look at the rates at that time and just assess the market then.
Commissioner Sturgeon?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm just, I mean, it looks exciting to save money for sure.
I'm just wondering, what would be the next most likely option if we were to say no to this? What would be our alternative options?
Well, my understanding is you don't meet again for a couple of months. So the original plan was to do it in the fall. I mean, that was the plan for this funding schedule. And really, that's been the plan all along, is that you would come with a single financing in the fall. So I guess, really Plan A was to fund this in the fall. But with this sort of historic sudden drop in rates, the question was, well, should we do part of it now? Not be, there was the phrase, it's an old investment saying, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, which I've heard a lot in my career. It's not putting all of our eggs in doing it now because we know rates are going to be higher in the fall, because we don't. But it's basically saying, well, let's do some of it now, and then we'll do some of it later. And, my general feeling on this stuff is, I really don't know where rates will be later on in the year. But in general, if rates go down, the only way a person might really regret this is if rates go to zero and stay at zero.
Right.
And if that were to happen, you have plenty of additional capital needs coming, and it wouldn't be a bad thing for the county to be able to borrow, but if rates go up, we'll be glad because we saved money by doing this portion now. So in my estimation, it's a bit of a hedge that really works out either way.
So we're going to have if we say yes, we'll have a lot of money that we're sitting on, correct? Where do we put that?
Well, bond money is typically invested, the state law governs what you can invest it in, but you can certainly, probably invest it, I would think, in LGIP or short-term treasuries.
What's LGIP?
That's a local government investment pool that the state runs, which again is invested mainly in short-term securities. So, there might be some negative carry between a 20-year borrowing rate and a short-term investment rate. I would expect there to be some negative carry. But if you were to sort of think in terms of spreading that out over 20 years, it's probably not what you're going to make a decision based on. So.
Okay. Thank you, Sam.
Commissioner Story?
Yes, so I know historically if we've got a $60 million project that's going to span over a year, we'll do a portion of it so we're only borrowing what we need until we need to start the next step. So it sounds to me that because we don't meet next month, really just fast forwarding this 3-4 months. So the hedge is get not, carrying cash or, same as cash, but getting close to it now. So every point that goes up, is there a potential dollar amount that you can throw that at in terms of?
Well, on the new money that's being presented tonight, I did a quick calculation this afternoon, as a matter of fact, and every 1/10% is $1 million over the life of the issue.
Okay.
So, 1% is like saving $10 million over the life of the issue. So, and it just points out again that small movements, add up to a lot of dollars, which again, when we talk about savings from doing it now, there's two ways to think about that again. There's the savings versus where rates will be, and I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how much you're going to save versus where rates will be in November. But then there's also savings versus what our expectations were a year ago when we were putting plans together.
Yeah.
Well, that we are locking in. We're locking in better deals than we'd been modeling, and that's for sure. And I do think, you typically approve bonds in September, October, sell in October, November. There is a risk, just because it's that annual 4-year election cycle, that there'll be a little bit of volatility in the marketplace heading into that period as well. So I don't know what that will mean, but it's just something to be cognizant of.
Just one point of order. The sheet that was on your desk that has the K-8 and high school funding, you will see on there that what we're doing tonight is 75% of the expected expenditures for these projects. So we are not funding them all at 100%. We're doing 75%, and then we're saving 25% to see just to kind of hedge our bets with, so just a point of explanation. Commissioner Tunnicliffe.
Is this going to allow us to expedite any of the work? I know we're expediting the funds, but can Jason address that? Do we move forward on some of the projects?
Mr. Commissioner, there's portions of it that it could expedite and speed our schedule along. I will say as superintendent, I've been pressing our staff on scheduling because of construction schedules and how much more difficult construction schedules are getting in Middle Tennessee. So it would be some of the planning aspects of it, some of the architectural work that we could get to a little bit earlier. So short answer is yes, but a limited amount.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Not, I assume you're ready to vote. Resolution 3-20-26. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. And I've got the problem one. There it goes. All right, Commissioner Hudson is out. Can we mark him as absent? Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Late filed Resolution 3-20-27, a resolution authorizing the issuance, sale, and payment of not to exceed $54,600,000 of county district school bonds of Williamson County, Tennessee, and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of the debt service on the bonds. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Jones, the second, I believe. Explanation, please.
Mr. Chair, you just heard Ms. Graham and Mr. Cruz discuss both of these. I'll open it up for them if there are any further questions.
Are there any questions on this second part of the first? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Late filed Resolution 3-20-28, a resolution authorizing the issuance, sale, and payment of general obligation school and public improvement refunding bonds and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of debt service on the bonds. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Jones, Dwight Jones the second. Explanation, please.
As you can see, these are the refunding bonds, and again, I'll call on Ms. Graham and Mr. Cruz to answer any technical questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Late filed Resolution 3-20-29, a resolution authorizing the issuance, sale, and payment of county district school refunding bonds of Williamson County and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of debt service on the bonds. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Dwight Jones the second. Explanation, please.
And this is the second half of 3-20-28. This goes with this whole package.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, with the actions that you took on the four late resolutions, I would encourage you now to go to Resolution 3-20-1 and 3-20-3, having those three pulled by Commissioner Tunnicliffe because you've addressed them in the late filed resolutions.
Do you agree to pull those, Mr. Commissioner? Yes, sir. All right. So we will pull Resolution 3-20-1 and 3-20-3 will be pulled from the agenda. Next, the one everyone here's been waiting for. Resolution 3-20-5, resolution of the Williamson County Board of Commissioners to endorse the 2040 Williamson County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Commissioner Lathers?
Second.
Commissioner Story the second. Property Committee?
7-4-0 against.
Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please. You gonna?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that we have the Planning Director, Mike Madison, here, is going to be doing a presentation of the comprehensive plan, which a copy is also in your packet.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. So as you know, this is a project that we've been working on for quite some time, well over a year now, and this is a big deal. This is a big deal because this plan will really help shape the future of Williamson County. This plan will very directly influence what it's like to live here and also the kind of quality of life that citizens will enjoy in the future. We're very fortunate to have been working with a really excellent consultant team led by Greg Dale with McBride Dale Clarion, who's with us this evening. He'll share in this presentation. We've also had two sub-consultants with specific expertise in the transportation and fiscal analysis fields. So I'm going to kick things off. I'll sort of set the stage by talking about the process, give you some background, and also kind of highlight some of the key analysis and evaluation that took place. And then Greg will come up and he'll kind of take it from there and cover the highlights of the plan itself. So I mentioned quality of life, and there's a lot of things that go into quality of life, certainly jobs and schools and a whole host of other things. But I think that community character and the quality of the physical environment is one of those things that really add to quality of life for people. And we're extremely fortunate in Williamson County to have what I consider really exceptional community character. I think our community character is something that it may be intangible, but it's something that really draws people and businesses to Williamson County, and we should be very proud of the character that we have, and we should work very hard to preserve and enhance that character. And that's where the comprehensive plan comes in. So our current comprehensive plan was adopted in 2007. It was the product of very extensive public participation. It addresses a whole host of things, but fundamentally it's a land use plan. So it primarily deals with land use, growth, development, and preservation issues. If you were to sum up all of the content and recommendation and policies of the current comprehensive plan, it would be to preserve rural character and to focus the majority of development in and around the cities, namely the urban growth boundaries. So that was the theme that emerged during that planning process back in 2007. And in order to implement that theme and that main idea, there was a recommendation to adjust the allowable densities in the rural areas from 1 unit per acre to 1 unit per 5 acres. And that recommendation actually made it into some of the preliminary drafts of the plan. However, rather late in that process, a number of large landowners expressed concerns about property values, and there was a decision made at that time not to change those fundamental residential densities that had been in place for many years. And so there has been kind of a disconnect, all right, between the policies and the ideals that are expressed in the plan and the implementation of that in terms of the allowable residential densities. And that has really handcuffed the county in terms of our ability to preserve rural character and to implement the main theme of the plan. This is a map that kind of highlights what has happened since 2007 To orient you, the dark gray areas are the municipalities, the yellow areas are the urban growth boundaries, and the areas with the white background are what we would consider the rural areas. The red illustrates development that was already in existence in 2007, and then the blue and purple areas represent development that has happened after the adoption of the plan in 2007. And so if the policy of the plan was working the way it was supposed to, you would see most of that blue and purple located in the yellow areas, in the urban growth boundaries. But the opposite has largely occurred, and by and large, the development has actually leapfrogged those urban growth boundaries and settled into rural areas. And so that has resulted in kind of a gradual chipping away of rural character. It's also exacerbated a growing traffic problem. You'll remember that in 2017, we did what we called a comprehensive traffic strategy for the unincorporated county. And that plan demonstrated that while outside traffic from other areas is the predominant contributor to congestion currently, that in the future, if the trends continue, that county residents would become an increasingly dominant user of local county roads. And that's a concerning trend, and it's particularly concerning in light of the rather staggering growth projections that are out there. So you've seen these. These are not our projections. These are not the consultant team's projections. These are actual projections. These come from the Nashville area MPO. They use these numbers in their transportation planning activities. And these projections suggest that by 2040, the population of Williamson County will more than double and exceed 500,000 people. There are some more recent projections that you've probably seen with very similar numbers. And so the point of this slide is not necessarily to get hung up on the exact number, because regardless of which projection you're looking at, the fact remains that we have been seeing and are expected to see tremendous growth. And so that really underscores the need of the county to be very deliberate and very intentional in our planning. So we've used this analogy throughout this process of the fork in the road, and we truly believe that that's where we are in Williamson County, and where we need to answer kind of once and for all, does the county still want to preserve rural character in outlying areas by focusing the majority of growth in and around the municipalities, and that's our current policies? Or does the county want to simply conclude that the continuation of development sprawling into rural areas is acceptable, and the existing policies are no longer appropriate? That's kind of the question that we feel like we're faced with at this time. So we have had a very good process. We have worked with a very good advisory committee that consists of elected officials, county officials, appointed officials, and then a variety of stakeholder groups. So for instance, developers, realtors, home builders, people representing environmental and preservation interests, and then simply residents. We've also had a very robust public input process. We've engaged the public in a variety of ways, both through physical meetings, through online opportunities. We have promoted the plan and these meetings in a number of ways, through television, through the newspaper, through radio, through a website that was dedicated solely to the plan, Twitter, Facebook, a variety of ways. And because of that, this time we've been able to reach a lot more people than we were in 2007, and really more than we have in any of the other planning processes that we've been involved with. One of the first things that we did, in fact, was gauge the public sentiment, and we did that through a number of ways: focus group meetings, public meeting, online surveys, and so forth. And what we heard from the public, frankly, was a lot of the same things we heard back in 2007. There's a strong desire to preserve rural character. There is a strong desire to be strategic in where growth is located. There were concerns about traffic, concerns about a loss of open space. So again, a lot of the same concerns were expressed during this planning process, but I would say this time they were voiced even more strongly than they were back in 2007. One of the key stages of the project was our consultant team doing some scenario planning. So we asked them to develop a couple of different scenarios. You've heard those referred to this evening. One is called business as usual, and it's just what it sounds like. You know, what would it look like if the county developed out according to the existing zoning and existing policies? The other one is town and country. What would it look like if the rural areas were zoned 1 unit per 5 acres, and in the urban growth boundaries, those areas were encouraged to develop according to the existing city plans or prevailing density. So what would each of those scenarios look like? And then we asked them to do an evaluation based on 3 key criteria. Community character, in other words, how closely do these different scenarios align with what the public has said they want to see in the county? The impact of the various scenarios on traffic and therefore roadway improvement needs that the county will face in the future, and then finally overall fiscal impacts. So this slide represents that first scenario, you know, business as usual. Again, what if the county built out according to the existing policies and zoning? You can see that kind of illustrated on the map, and then the numbers toward the right-hand side of the slide sort of illustrate what that would look like. So that would mean a total of approximately 82,000 dwelling units just in unincorporated areas outside of the urban growth boundaries. This scenario would result in an average lot size of just over 2 acres, and that's significant because there are many properties that, because of floodplain or other factors, would stay rather large, and so this would be an average lot size throughout the unincorporated county outside of the urban growth boundaries. They project a $5 billion cumulative impact to serve the community outside of urban growth boundaries alone. This scenario would generate 6 automobile trips per acre, and then the need for roadway improvements would be in the neighborhood of $110 million, and that's a conservative figure. So to contrast that, this is the example of the town and country scenario. You can see that the number of dwelling units is cut almost in half. The average lot size is more than doubled to near 5 acres. The cumulative cost to serve would be reduced from about $3.5 billion to $1.5 billion. The number of automobile trips per acre would be cut roughly in half, and then about $110 million would be shaved off of that roadway improvement need. So this is just a side-by-side, so you can see how these various scenarios kind of compare with each other. After the scenarios were developed, it was important to us to get a sense from the community, from elected officials, from the advisory committee, how people felt about those. So we had another public meeting. We had additional online opportunities and various exercises that people could do online. And what we found is that the citizens that responded either at the meeting or in various online ways, 92% of those expressed a preference for the town and country scenario. The advisory committee met, and they unanimously determined that they wanted us to pursue the town and country scenario. And then there was a joint meeting, as you recall, between the county commission and planning commission back in October, and the general direction given to us then was also to pursue the town and country scenario. So it was back in October that the policies of the plan really took form and became public. So you know, by the time the plan was drafted there really were no surprises. These were policies and the direction that the plan was taken that was very much in the community and in the public eye back in October. So this just kind of summarizes what we've learned throughout this process. Of course, growth is accelerating, we know that, and the current path is eroding rural character and historic landscape, increasing traffic congestion, and is fiscally unsustainable. And the common thread in all of that is rural density, and it can be traced back to that decision that was made in 2007. The public has expressed kind of an overwhelming call for change, for true rural preservation, for efficient growth, strong public services and facilities, and then also that natural and historic resources be preserved. So back to the policy fork in the road question. Through this process, I think we've answered that fundamental question with a resounding yes, that the county does still want to preserve rural character in outlying areas by focusing the majority of growth in and around the municipalities. So that'll cover my remarks. Greg will come up here and run through the plan highlights, and then Greg and I will both be available for questions.
While he's coming up, I'm going to make one point of order, that our vote tonight is strictly whether to endorse or not. It is actually the Planning Commission that has the approval process on this.
Yes, sir, that's exactly right.
So all we do is voting whether we agree with it or not.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. What I propose to do is to walk you through the elements of the actual physical plan itself, the land use plan, and then what I'd like to do is to focus in particular on the implementation strategies for the plan, because when you start with the proposed plan, as you look at this map, one of the things that you might think is that when you compare it to the 2000 plan, it doesn't look all that different. In other words, the geographies that we're dealing with in terms of the municipalities, the urban growth boundaries, the rural areas, and the villages and the hamlets are very similar to what were discussed before. The key is in terms of how we look at the implementation of this. And let me see if I can make sense out of that for you. So the four building blocks that we're dealing with in terms of the land use are the rural, the hamlets, the villages, and the municipal growth areas, working up in terms of intensities. So let's start with the rural. So some of the policies, the way the plan is structured is for each of these categories, there's a series of land use policies that would be associated with each one of those. So in terms of the rural, one of the key things to understand here in the rural areas is the importance of policies that allow for new residential and rural and agricultural uses to peacefully coexist, to work together. So the core policy, the continuation of the rural patterns and low-density residential, the base density of 1 unit per acre shifting to 1 unit per 5 acres in those areas, which is what almost all of the discussion tonight has been about, but there's really a lot more to this plan as well. Expectation of rural level of service. So for example, the expectation that the rural areas would not be provided with sanitary sewer, for example. Protection of natural and historic resources, improved conservation subdivisions. One of the things that can happen is that when you start with a base density of 1 unit per 5 acres, rural conservation subdivisions can work much better than with a base density of 1 unit per acre. 1 unit per acre makes it difficult for conservation subdivisions to work well. So one of the things that would be proposed to happen was those conservation subdivision regulations would be revisited, tailored more towards that base density of 1 unit per 5 acres. And then an open space preservation plan, I'll come back and talk about that under the implementation. The hamlets, and the hamlets, we're talking about places like Kirkland and Bethesda and Paytonsville, those small, essentially crossroad communities, which are small focal points in the rural areas, and where there is some opportunity for non-residential uses to exist, perhaps small-scale service kinds of facilities, a small restaurant or something like that, but they're really not intended under this plan or under the previous plan to be areas that have substantial development occur within them, and with kind of clear and distinct limits associated with them. And then working up in terms of intensity are the villages. Those are areas where there are opportunities outside of the municipal growth areas or the urban growth boundaries, where there are opportunities for some, still limited, but more substantial growth opportunities. But, and this is critical, not new, but critical to understand that those areas would only be identified for those growth opportunities where they have been subject to a special area planning process, a special area plan, and custom zoning that are associated with them. So for example, since the 2000 plan, the county has gone through a process of College Grove, Grassland, Leapers Fork, and Triune, where those area plans were developed. They were rezoned in accordance with those area plans. What this plan also calls for is for the possibility of two future villages to emerge. The Arrington and Rudderville, what are now hamlets, are in this plan candidates to become future village plans, but again, only after they go through the special area planning process and have the custom zoning associated. And it's possible that other villages are identified in the future as this plan is updated, hopefully more frequently than every 10 years or so. And then, of course, we have the municipal growth areas. Those are the areas, you know this, those are the areas that were originally developed or identified under the Tennessee Public Chapter 1101 that were identified. And keep in mind that the current plan, and this is according to the statutory scheme, the idea of growth, new growth being directed into and around the municipal areas, including these municipal growth areas, is an important part of this process. And we think that one of the keys to making this process work this time is for this collaborative regional growth management planning process. And again, I will talk more about that as we go. But the idea is that theoretically, when growth occurs in those urban growth boundary areas, that they are done under municipal jurisdiction. That's part of the strategy. Okay, so let me walk you through the implementation strategy here. So the first thing I want to emphasize as we talk about, I'm going to talk about four different things. I'm going to talk about the growth management framework. I want to talk about additional rural protection measures, transportation infrastructure, and then finally quality growth and development. But under this urban growth framework, there are really two pieces of this. There's the rural density, which we've all been talking about, but there's also, frankly, making the municipal growth areas work better. And one of the things that I want to emphasize about this plan overall is this plan is not a no growth. This is not a slow growth plan. This is a managed growth plan. And in our perspective through this process, there are two things that are important to make that work. One is a reduction in the density in the rural areas, but the other is working with the municipalities, working with the cities to make those municipal growth areas work, because that's where you have an opportunity to accommodate the growth. That's frankly where you have a much better opportunity to promote and encourage and allow more affordable housing, more diverse ranges of housing than you would have in a rural environment. So let me walk you through these. So the first piece, we've heard this. I won't belabor the point. You all understand what is being proposed here. The reduction in zoning densities from the 1 unit per acre to the 1 unit per 5 acre outside of the municipal growth areas, other than in areas with the special area plans like the villages. But the other important part of that is the municipal growth area planning. And one of the things that's important to understand is that these two things, the reduction in density and the coordinated, let's call it regional growth planning with the cities, are complementary, but they're not connected. In other words, we think that the reduction in rural density is justified, as Mike said, based on things like the slowing down of the additional traffic generation, preserving the rural character of the fiscal sustainability. And those are things that are important to get done. Those can be done by this body alone, by the county alone, unincorporated county. Whereas when we talk about municipal growth area, that's going to be a more complicated process. That's going to take longer to happen because you look at all the things on here in terms of the bulleted list. These are the kinds of things that we have worked with other regions of the country to deal with. We think that, frankly, one of the things you would want to start with here is what we're calling the regional growth, the regional symposium. Let's invite people from around the country that have engaged in this kind of multi-jurisdictional, city, county, multiple cities working together on a regional growth management strategy and hear what they've done. I won't go through every one of these, but there's a whole series of steps that are laid out in the plan that are a complement or a supplement to the reduction in density, which, working together, ideally, both of them happening, allow for this regional growth management to occur. But we did spend a lot of time thinking about this with the staff and with the advisory committee. We do think that the reduction in rural density are things that are justified on their own standing and should be done and have broad-based community support. But having said all that, we think that there are some other important things that should go along with this that are in this category of additional rural protection. One of them is an open space plan. That was actually called for in the 2000 plan, and it never happened. That's a plan where the county can identify and prioritize land that's suitable for preservation, work to develop a dedicated funding source, and identify implementation actions such as a whole mixture of things: scenic easements, purchase of development rights, could be transfer of development rights, other open space preservation that supplements and complements the reduction in densities that are proposed. We heard a lot about the desire for historic and cultural landscape preservation policies, particularly along certain corridors like Old Hillsborough Road corridor. The need not just to think about density, not just to think about open space, but to think about the cultural and historic resources that are part of that. So there are recommendations in the plan that range from education to additional planning and implementation of those strategies. The other thing that we heard a lot about is the need for tools that allow for families who want to continue to have their farms in the family and continue to be able to farm, to not be economically forced out of that due to a range of conditions. So there's a whole series of things that we've emphasized here that could be looked at as part of the strategy. Reduce property tax, reduce fees, create different scales of voluntary agricultural zoning, streamlining process. But the other one of the things that we heard a lot about is what happens to the family farm if we change the density to 1 unit per 5 acres? What happens to the family farm if we want to carve off a piece for another generation? And so one of the things that is called for in there is to provide for those essentially family subdivision exemptions to allow for those to be able to created on less than 5 acres. Other communities, other counties in the country have done that kind of family subdivision exemption. And then finally, update the conservation subdivision regulations, which I was talking about earlier, in terms of making them fit a 1 unit per 5 acre density as contrasted with the 1 unit per 1 acre density. Then we have the transportation infrastructure initiatives, and this really takes us back to that comprehensive traffic strategy that Mike was talking about. All the things on here were called for in that strategy, and this commission may recall that 2 years ago when that strategy came out, it was accepted, but it was then decided, you know what, we need to figure out this fundamental density issue. We need to figure out the planning policies before we do this. But the need to update the thoroughfare plan, develop roadway funding tools, and you will recall in that comprehensive traffic study there were multiple options that were laid out in terms of how to develop that funding, tying the major thoroughfare plan to a capital improvement program that looks at short, mid, and long-term ranges. Eliminate the traffic shed regulations. This is an interesting one because this is for those of you who are familiar with the traffic shed regulations, you know that there aren't many people in this world that actually understand those at any level of detail. If you go to 1 unit per 5 acre density, you wouldn't need those anymore. That is the default density within those traffic shed regulations. So you wouldn't need those as well. Coordination with regional transportation planning, which is something that always should happen. And then finally is just kind of the overarching idea that to continue the progress that the county's made in terms of promoting quality and sustainable and development that holds its value in terms of its benefit to the community through a number of different ways. Certainly continuing to prepare the village area plans is one of those, but just to continue to monitor and improve and update the development standards to ensure higher quality design. That's been a trajectory that the county's been on ever since I've been around here for the last 15 years or so, that there's this constant desire to monitor and update the land use regulations and development regulations to continue to push the quality of development up. And then finally, just to wrap this up, at the end of the plan, you see this chart. We realize that we've put a lot on the to-do list for the county. So one of the things that we worked with staff on and vetted closely with the advisory committee is how to think about getting all this done over what ended up being about a 5-year period. So for example, the first two you can see under the growth management are the reduction in density, which is something that's immediately within your control. Working along with the growth management planning with the municipalities, which is clearly going to be a heavier lift. I mean, that's working to achieve consensus with however many cities you have in this county on these policies. That's going to be looking at all of those urban growth boundary areas, all those municipal growth areas, which can, probably be looked at in terms of timing and sequencing of how those would occur. A much more complicated process, which is going to take a couple of years probably to unfold. And then you can see where other things all fit here. This is just a guide. This isn't cast in stone, but this is a guide to how you can balance staff resources, your bandwidth, if you will, to get all of this accomplished, and that was our best effort to do it. So that's the overview of the plan. Mike and I are here to hopefully try to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioner Sturgeon.
Thank you, Chairman. My main question is, what's your position on what this will do to land values?
Commissioner Sturgeon, I don't think anyone can definitively say, what's going to happen with land values. I will say that we spent quite a bit of time assembling data and analyzing that data. We shared a lot of that with you. So while we can't unequivocally say that we know what will happen with land values, there is a lot of information that suggests that the fear of property values significantly going down is probably unlikely. I think there is really a value that people place on open space and rural character that would translate monetarily.
Thanks, Mike.
Commissioner Lathers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I said I would do something before we got into questions, and I forgot, and that was to allow the three sponsors a moment to speak to it, and I haven't. So you were one of the sponsors. So if you have something you'd like to say on it before your question, and then the other two sponsors also would give them a chance to speak before we get to the questions. So.
Okay, I was going to questions, and now I'm shifting gears. Okay. I was just going to say that it's interesting that I have my notes from a 2007 comprehensive plan meeting I attended, though I don't live in the unincorporated area at the time, and I heard so much from the people about wanting this direction. That being said, I know there's been some confusion about, there was some verbiage at one time about the 1-to-1, like if we went to 1-to-5, that conservation subdivisions should not be less than 1 acre. And that has been, I want to make that clear in public, that has been revised in your current packet. A conservation subdivision, to be fair to property owners, in my opinion, to be fair to property owners and the development community in terms of clustering, which was mentioned earlier, we can't go as small as, in my opinion, a 1 acre lot. But if you look at it, like the base zoning that we're talking 1-to-5, where property owners can still develop their property and still cluster, but there is greater open space in terms of buffering existing neighbors, correct? And you still have a reduction on infrastructure costs, whether that be asphalt, your sewer system and so forth. So I just want to make that point, and then you could add to that if you'd like. And then also for those who are existing property owners that have their property for sale, are in a certain point in the process. Mike, if you could address that, and then I'll just follow up with one comment. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks for bringing that up. So there are some people we recognize who are in the process of either carving out some property via a subdivision plat or actually developing property into a subdivision or another development. So from a timing standpoint, first I want to make it clear that adoption of this plan, you all just asked to endorse it. The Planning Commission will be asked to adopt it, but adopting the plan doesn't do anything to change the zoning. That is a separate process that needs to take place. And in order to do that, we would have public meetings. There would be a public hearing before the Planning Commission and County Commission, and so that would take some time. Also, we would imagine that when that zoning does take place, that there would be an effective date established sometime after the zoning is adopted. And I say that to answer your question more directly, which is that if someone has submitted a complete application to the county for a plat or for a subdivision, before the zoning were to change, that application would be processed and it would go through the review and approval process under the existing zoning. So, so that would give time for people who are already in the process, even if they're just beginning the process, to get through that time period.
Thank you very much. And the last thing I just wanted to share, Mr. Chairman, is just part of the advisory committee meeting group, is that it was a really great group of diverse people, a lot of great discussion. There was discussion, if you go to a 1 to 3, well, then do you counteract that with a 1 to 10? And some folks from the development community at that point expressed more of a appreciation of the 1 to 5 and not doing this 1 to 3, 1 to 10 thing. I just wanted to point that out. Also, in terms of numbers, I think sometimes when data is questioned, it makes all of us confused. I personally have studied thoroughly. The WAKR gave us this last year. I've covered those numbers, compared them with the GRNC numbers, with the Williamson County Inc. numbers. I'll study everything I can to try to make these decisions, which are so challenging. But I would say in closing that when we are anti-growth, we take away property rights of landowners. When we are pro-growth at any cost, and we cannot fiscally provide the schools and infrastructure, we are being irresponsible. So I think this is an attempt at managed growth. And that's all I have to say, unless there are questions from my colleagues. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams?
I think Mike and Dell have done a wonderful job detailing the process that we've gone through. I was on the advisory committee with Commissioners Lathers and Commissioner Lawrence. Probably about 18 months worth of work, many meetings, many public meetings, plans, revisements. It's been a fairly complicated and long process. So thank you for detailing that. There's a triangle of relationships, right? And two of them we deal with all the time. There's taxes, and being a fiscally conservative community, we strive for low taxes. And I would say over the last 30 to 40 years, this county has done a good job of achieving that goal. One of the downsides to low taxes is it constrains your cash flow coming in to pay for things. So then we issue debt, and I think as you guys saw tonight, sometimes they're very large numbers that we look at. But being a conservative fiscally community, we structure our debt very conservatively. We build 40-year assets like high schools with 20-year bonds. We strive to protect our AAA bond rating, so we get the lowest interest rate possible. We get creative in refinancing when interest rates are down, so we can save as much money. So we've done a fairly good job at that. You look at our debt ratio, it's been well managed, even though they're large numbers sometimes. The last piece of that triangle relationship is growth. And we don't touch that as often as we do taxes and debt. And quite honestly, from the growth projections that we're looking at, no matter what the number is, is that if we don't do something about this now, then those mechanisms that have funded this county for so long and have guided us so well, we're looking at making a philosophical change in deviation from those mechanisms that have funded us well, whether it be higher taxes or restructuring or structuring future debt in a different way than we've typically done it. And so this is an attempt to bring that growth curve back into alignment so that that triangle of relationships between growth and taxes and debt are maintained, and we're able to healthily grow this county into the future. And quite honestly, in 20 years from now, we'll look back at this, and this is a pivotal juncture in the future trajectory of our county, right, and how we shape it going forward. And I think at the end of the day, we'll all be proud by doing the right thing and trying to bring that growth curve back down so that we're fiscally responsible in how this county moves forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence.
I just want to thank Mike and Greg for the job that you guys have done on this land use plan. It's really a tremendous amount of work. I think you've done a great job, both of you, and I appreciate it very much. I did serve with Commissioners Lathers and Williams and some of the others of you in this room from members of the community that served on the committee. I want to thank you as well. And I think it's important to point out that we had members of the development community and the Home Builders Association on this committee, and they were there for a reason. Because we wanted their input. We wanted to know what they felt, what their needs were as developers, or what their needs were as home builders, and what what their thoughts were and ideas about this plan. And they all voted to support this plan. So I think that's very important to point out that we had a really good cross section of the community on this committee that put this together.
Thank you. Commissioner Beathard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike, can you give us an idea of how much time your department and the other departments have put into this? I know you had things in place to show the public in October, but prior to that, how much overall time has your department put into this?
I think the statement about 18 months is correct, and some of that early work was kind of behind the scenes, gathering background information so that we could study that information during the process. So, 18 months of time, and then, I couldn't even guess at how many staff hours, consultant hours took place. But I will tell you that over that 18 months, it took, a very large portion of all of our time.
And I know all the departments have worked on this, and I know all of the commissioners have gone through the various committee meetings, and this has been on the forefront of our mind for quite some time. My heart is pulled towards those residents who, for whatever reason, may have only learned about this in recent weeks. In all disclosure, I'm a yes vote. I'll be a yes vote tonight. I would also be a yes vote in May. If we were to defer this to give those residents who have only learned of this recently some time to ask more questions, in a 20-year plan, is there anything you can foresee that waiting 2 months would endanger the work you've done in any way?
Commissioner Beathard, I think I've just answered it this way, that this has been a lengthy, very deliberate process. We've engaged the community throughout the process. We've built in numerous public input opportunities. The policies that are contained in the plan were presented back in October, and that was when the direction was established. Having said that, that's of course up to you all, but staff is recommending that you not defer it.
If it's okay, Mr. Chairman, realizing the impact that this will have on not only the residents here but future residents, again, and I don't want this to be misinterpreted in any way, I've actually thought about this about other resolutions that we've had in which members of the community come, and even though we've worked on things for a lengthy period of time, perhaps even years, those residents who work hard and have lives that are more fascinating than a commissioner's life, have things to do, things on their plate, may at times find themselves falling through that crack in which the information, for whatever reason, didn't get to them in a timely manner. And I'm cognizant of that, and so if it's okay, I would like to make a motion that we defer this until our next meeting in May.
Who was the, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second. Commissioner Shayla, but we do have a motion to defer in a second. I will make a point of order again. We are only endorsing. The Planning Commission is meeting Thursday night to approve it. Our vote to defer would have no effect unless they voted to defer. That this is strictly an endorsement of the plan or not to endorse it. So if we defer it, the Planning Commission is still going to hear it. They will still have their public hearing, and they have the final say. So on that, we have a deferral on the floor, so we have discussion on the deferral. So Commissioner Story, you are next in line. Is your discussion on the deferral? All right, Commissioner Herbert, is your discussion on the deferral?
Yes.
Ms. Commissioner Herbert.
Okay, I'm one of these lifelong residents, 7th generation, and right now I live on a farm that's 5 acres per house, which I absolutely love. I love looking at the deer in the morning. It's perfect for me. So I understand everybody with the town and country. I mean, I see everybody I grew up with moving out of this county because of what it's become. They don't like all this growth. And I mean, and we're going to lose it if something don't change. But I come from a long line of farmers that have worked their butts off to hold on to that land, to pay for it and work all the time, milking cows, cutting tobacco. So I understand their point of view. That's the reason this is so difficult for me. I understand both sides. And I think it's so hard on them for them thinking that they're going to lose what they're, as everybody knows Danny Cotton, is he says his 401k. And that is their 401k. That's their retirement. Where people in subdivisions aren't losing anything by this. They're gaining more scenery. But I love, you know, it's really hard for me, both sides, but I would like to see it deferred because I feel like that this has been going on, and I appreciate the work of planning, but I feel like a lot of them feel like they're blindsided, that they didn't realize this was going on. They feel like they haven't had their say. And this affects them, it may affect them financially or it may not. I don't know. That's the big question. But I feel like they still need to get their say and be able to meet with planning to feel more comfortable or give planning their opinions about it more. So I will vote for the deferral.
Commissioner Lathers on the deferral?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask a question of Mike Madison, do you mind, related to the deferral?
Yes. Mike.
Thank you. Director Madison, as my understanding is that this is a comprehensive plan, it's a living document, but where we're going to go into some detail is for the zoning ordinances. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So with what, staff is recommending that we don't defer and that we go forward with the plan, is there wiggle room as we hear public hearing on Thursday and then we go through the process of zoning to hear, again, interface with large landowners and do some tweaking? Just how much leeway do we have in the zoning process? That would affect my decision whether to defer or not. Thanks.
So the zoning process will be another public process. So there will be public meetings. Any comment that is provided at a public meeting or, outside of that forum will be cataloged and reviewed and addressed. Be public hearings before the Planning Commission and the County Commission. So I guess, yes, there would be. What we're going to do once the plan is adopted is start working on a zoning map. And in order to finalize that zoning map, we feel like we need to have at least 2 public meetings, and we need to hear from people. So there may be instances, based on what we learn, where some of that may alter the zoning map that eventually gets to you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Williams on the deferral.
Thank you, Chairman Little. And honestly, I think Commissioner Lathers addressed a portion of my comments. you know, the rubber's about to hit the road following this, right? I mean, the way I look at this is that this is an endorsement by the county commission saying that we have got to do a change and we've got to manage the growth in this county better than what we have been doing in the past, right? In those public comments, the meetings that are going to come before the planning commission, that's where all the finite details are going to come in and it will get developed. So in effect, there is already a deferment that's going to play out over the course of the process of just going through the process. So us deferring this tonight does not necessarily accomplish anything other than delaying us recognizing that we've got to do something about the growth in this county. And so I would support endorsing this tonight so we can start the formal process of doing the public meetings and start developing the zoning regulations that will go into effect.
Thank you. Commissioner Ayala.
As has been stated tonight, my understanding is that there will be a zoning vote on this Thursday regardless of what we do. Is that correct?
That is, it is not a
Commissioner,
zoning
there
vote.
would be a planning commission meeting at which there will be a public hearing regarding the comprehensive plan. Now, whether that's a vote or not, you know, I can't say, but that public hearing will take place and the planning commission will consider adopting the plan.
Okay. It's my position that the board should have the benefit of knowing the gauge of the county commission before having a vote on that matter. What this is being asked of this commission is to simply state whether you as a commissioner endorse this plan. Whether you endorse it at this stage or not, I think that the board should have the benefit of knowing that position before they go to a vote later this week. Vote for it, vote against it based upon how comfortable you feel on this process, but I think that vote needs to happen tonight.
Commissioner Story? On the deferral.
Yeah, from the deferral standpoint, I have been, ever since I was voted into a commission, I've been here for about a year and some change. This is what I ran on. I come from West Tennessee, an area just like Franklin that when it was 30 years ago, 5,000 people, and then the moment something happened, one specific company moves in, and next thing you know, we're 50,000 when I leave. I go back and I look at the fact that it is not the same place that I lived, that I grew up at, and I think from a preservation standpoint, we've got to kind of put something in. We have to put a foot in the ground and see what direction we want it to go at. But B, from a standpoint of information, because I think emotion has been evoked based on information off of assumptions, and I think it gets people worked up. Today is not a vote, or this week is not a vote on saying this is what your life's going to be like for the next 20 years. It's the start of the process to where we're always engaged or attempted to be engaged, involved. It's about how do you then, in the zoning standpoint, how you are directly affected. Today is a policy and a end result of what we would like to see. The work really starts after this. So that's why I think we should move ahead and go forward with the vote, because it starts that process of what tomorrow looks like for you as an individual. So thank you.
Commissioner Sturgeon on the deferral.
Yeah, my point is that there's a lot of people that have been involved in this process for a very long time. And when I first moved here, we were having meetings on the area village plan. And I was pretty jaded. I came here from California, and I'm like, yeah. It's a public process, but everybody already knows what the outcome's going to be, and they're just going through the motions to make the public feel good and that they had something to say about what's already going to happen. Because that's the way I thought when I got here from California. But I've been here for 10 years, and I've seen how the process works. And I think if we were to defer this, it would fuel the idea that all those people, the 92% who put in their public comments, and thought that they were really being listened to, it's going to make them think otherwise. So I would say not to defer.
Sorry. Okay. All right, sorry, we were having a discussion on the original motion. So we have a motion on the floor to defer. We can do that by voice vote or raise of hands. All those in favor of the deferral, raise your hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I count correctly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? All right, the deferral. So now we're back to the motion, and the question was asked is who seconded the original motion? And I know that Commissioner Lathers made the motion. I thought Commissioner Story, seconded it. Okay, so that. All right, so. All right, so we'll let you go then.
Motion. One thing that I asked years ago when we went through this, and I do think it's important that we talk about this, is page 32 in the growth management framework. If you look at the map, you see the map from north to south is nothing but city. And when we open this up, and I think I've talked to the mayor about this, is we're going to have a real understanding with the cities and the county that this urban growth, this thing that we do tonight, we don't see cities looking to grab more land. And with state laws that they currently are, where people can get annexed on a simple referendum, it's not a big concern. I'm a 66-year-old resident. I am probably the only person in this room that went to a wooden schoolhouse in Williamson County. I actually did, so that shows you my age, and I've seen it change. But with this vote tonight, we've got to get together with the cities to make sure that, and I don't know what guarantees we have here, that we don't see Spring Hill jump across the interstate, which they're not there. So can someone speak to that we have? What guarantees can we get that we won't see this?
Mayor, would you like to address
Yes.
this, please?
So the process is as following. About 1990, I need some people here to help me on the dates. 96, 97, 98, Jeff. We had a comprehensive plan based off of Public Chapter 1101. Public Chapter 1101 was implemented. Had its beginning around 1998 to 2000. The cities and counties sat down and for over 2 years went through a long process of which cities, we have 6 cities, so all 6 cities at that time decided on the area that they wanted to grow in. The county was represented there too. Very little was known about that Public Chapter 1101. In fact, I made a comment the other night, it was really referred to as the tiny town law, where the cities were running out along the roads, picking up the tax base, and then coming back to the city and not taking the responsibility for the roads, the schools, and et cetera. So the legislators put together this and said, okay, all 95 counties, every city, you've got to sit down in your individual jurisdiction, your municipalities, and you have to come up with a plan for systematically organizational growth for the next 20 years. That leads us to today. Since that time, that coordinating committee, I think is what it's actually called, has never been put back at the table again for the very fear that you talked about. Our legislators, over the last few years, have changed and tweaked the way annexation occurs. In fact, about the only way you can annex today is through a referendum, which occurred in Franklin on about 450 acres, some of you are familiar with it, down past the Ag Center, that only the people who voted on 26 different parcels, I think it was 26, they're the only ones that could vote. Prior to that time, cities could annex based on the urban growth boundaries around these cities since that period of time in about 1998 to 99. Those men and women in Nashville, when they defined that, said you got to get back together again in 20 years. There were a few counties. Probably Montgomery County did a pretty good job, but they only had one city, at Clarksville. Many of the counties had multiple cities, and it was very difficult to get back without this grabbing of land. So I have said at several meetings along the way, along with the urban growth comprehensive plan that you're talking about tonight, then the next step is the zoning piece of that. But there's a piece that fits in there too, and that's getting all of the cities and the counties back around the table, redefining this growth with all of this input that we're getting now from communities that, quite frankly, we didn't have 20 plus years ago. Am I going to be successful? So I've crawled upon some minds to help me do this. One of the ways is to go back to the cities, tell them that we're going to constitute or reconstitute this urban growth boundary comprehensive plan again, but we're going to have some memorandums of understanding between this city and the county before we all sit down at the table, so that we can all look at Williamson County and their nearly 800,000 acres that we've got, so that the city residents have input, Fairview, Spring Hill, Thompson Station, Franklin, Nolensville, and Brentwood, that we can all sit down and say, this is what our community is wanting today, not back prior to 1998. It's changed. It's grown. So what can you systematically provide your citizens in the city limits with sewer and water and a lot of the things that we've come to go? And by the way, the county wants to stay rural. It's a tough call. You didn't ask me to speak about what I'm about to say next. You asked me what guarantees. I have spoke to several of the cities that do want us to get back together again. We probably got cities that have got land in the urban growth boundary that they no longer want or need, and they probably roll them back into the county. We've got some cities that probably would like to reach out and pick up another few acres. But that's where that public hearing is going to come in, not just to you as a county commission, not just to you as the planning commission, which you've got to do on Thursday night, but those city residents need to speak up and say, we need a little help. We need some protection too out here, because if we wake up and we're off on the numbers, and I heard these numbers, if our consultant is off 50%, it's still kind of high. It's kind of ridiculous, quite frankly. I don't have the answer for you, Ricky. And you know, we all love this county because you're not making enough money to sit up here on a night like tonight, I promise you. But you are responsible to make a decision for the betterment of this entire county, whether you delay it, whether you vote for it. Because we do not want to wake up here. We had an opportunity to this in 2007. We didn't take advantage of it. And I understand why. But we're going to do everything we can through memorandums of understanding, Ricky, to ask them to come back to that table and plan it out. And if they don't, then we've protected the county.
Well, the only reason I bring that up, I talked to somebody today, and they didn't understand all the annexation laws. And, you know, they go, you mean really that somebody can annex 200 acres of a farm into a city if this, according to state laws. And so I just wanted that to be heard when we do this, that, you know, state law trumps county law. And I just wanted everyone to hear what you told us in the meeting and what you're going to work on, your plan.
It's an ambitious plan, but I do believe there's enough residents now, both large landowners and small lots, that truly care about Williamson County. You guys care about it because we're knocking on the door of a lot of money for schools and roads. So let's address it. I'm willing to make that run and try it with the cities, and I think we can twist some arms to get there. It won't be easy.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for explaining that. That is a big concern. Obviously, that it can totally undo everything we're doing on this land use plan if the cities believe or think they can do whatever they want. I didn't really have, my comment wasn't really addressed to that, but I do want to thank, it's getting late, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I'm not going to speak very long. I just want to point out one thing, but I do want to thank you all for coming out, and regardless of which position you are on this, thank you for all your input. I think I've gotten more input on this particular subject than anything else that I've been a part of since I've been a commissioner, and that's what county government should be about. You should all be involved in your government, and we appreciate that very much. There's really one simple question I think this boils down to from a county government budget standpoint. And before I ask the question, I'm just going to point out a couple of numbers. This year we have budgeted $13,622,000 in our county highway fund. That's how much money we've got to fix all the roads in the county. $13,622,000. We hired a consultant who told us 2 years ago that we're already $140 million in the deficit for infrastructure costs around Williamson County. So that means today, if we don't build one more house today in the county, we need $140 million to fix the roads that we got. And we got $13,622,000. So we don't have, and we have no way of making up that deficit. We don't have a funding source for that. So if we add an additional 50,000 homes or 60,000 homes out in the county, all that's going to do is make that deficit go even higher. And there is no way we're going to be able to fund that without a massive tax increase of some type to develop some type of fund, and that's not going to be very popular. So the question is, does it make sense for us to continue to allow building out on these county roads? And you guys have been on these roads, Clovercroft Road, Sneed Road, Arno Road. You know these roads aren't adequate right now to meet the demand that they're getting. And we don't have the money to fix them. And so putting more homes out there, it's only going to get worse. So does it make sense for us to continue to allow all that building on roads that aren't adequate for them and we don't have the funding for it? Or does it make sense for us to try to push that development back towards places in the county where we do have the infrastructure? And that's the underlying question for me. That's what I wrote in the paper this week. It's a county budget issue that we just can't solve. So we have to do something different than what we're doing now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Story.
So to kind of piggyback on what Greg's talking about, when we talk about does growth pay for itself, it clearly doesn't. Otherwise, we wouldn't be adding to the debt every time we meet. So that's one issue. But the other issue is when we do try to align the cost of growth with the drivers of growth, some of the same organizations that are pushing the opposition of this were pushing against the opposition for aligning the cost of the growth with the drivers of growth. So again, it's kind of an uphill battle that we're constantly kind of battling. And again, when I look at some of the roads across the county, these are paved wagon trails, right? You know, that everything kind of has grown up around. And And when you look at the map of where we currently are, I think we're over 65 to close to 75% of the county is already zone 1 to 5 in one form or another, whether it's through preservation or rural development. We're already close to 70% of 1 to 5. And I don't see the exact numbers, but when you looked at the map up there, it showed that big block of green is almost exclusively to the west. So you've got two issues. You've got everything moving to the on the east side is where all the development is coming. So you have all the traffic coming east going into Franklin is coming through the same areas that we're allowing the densest amount of development. So it's compounding all the issues of traffic, of quality of life, of losing the rural preservation. And then you've got an issue where the west side of all the areas that are 1 to 5 are now subsidizing the 1 to 1 areas, because just the past year and a half, this body's approved 3 schools on 65 or east of 65. So all of that, all the money from the county is going towards all of these highly density, all these areas that are kind of driving all the development. And even from a standpoint of, I am 100% with property rights. You guys work your tail off for what you've got. I completely understand that, and I am with you. But your neighbor also has that same right as well, and so that's where we have to find the balance between your 100 acres and your neighbor's 100 acres. If your 100 acres turns into 100 homes, how does that change the person that was next door that didn't necessarily, that wants to kind of maintain that? So, so I don't want this to be turned into a one side versus another. This is a county issue, and so this is something that's going to affect everybody one way or the other. I think what we've planned here is something that meets in the middle. It standardizes the entire county, which again is already primarily or majority 1 to 5. It pretty much levels the playing field in terms of what you've got, where the growth goes, where it equitably goes across the county, and it pushes it more to where all the infrastructure is readily available, and it cuts down on traffic and whatnot. So I appreciate everybody here, but that's kind of my stance. Thank you.
Commissioner Sturgeon.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try to be concise. The mayor was talking about the discussion over the urban growth boundaries, and I just wanted to ask or encourage that those people who have land in the unincorporated county should also be part of the process. Because I watched in Southern County with an annexation that went way outside of the urban growth boundary, residents that live in unincorporated county going, wait a minute, I want to live in the country. I thought I always did live in the country, and now I find out there's going to be a development in my backyard because this municipality has legally annexed land that's gone way outside of the urban growth boundary. They were taken by surprise. They were dumbfounded that they lived in the county and they were going to end up with a city in their backyard. So please include them too.
Commissioner Landrum?
Yes, mine is very quick. I had a couple of constituents ask specific questions about different ways and different things that could happen. I wanted to be sure, just for the record, that I reviewed them. Staff has done a great job of getting those answers back to me, and they'll be addressed during the zoning portion if this passes. So I wanted to be sure they had been addressed. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams.
Final statement. In my history on the commission, I originally represented the 10th, sat next to Commissioner Landrum, which is the northern half of Franklin. Now sit in the 9th and represent 95% unincorporated district. The commonality between those two districts, the most used phrase I ever heard was, don't allow us to become Atlanta. All right, you have an opportunity to put that plan into motion tonight.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor of the endorsement of the plan, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
Okay, 22 yes, 0 no.
Yeah, she said 1 no. 22 yes, 1 no.
22 yes and 1 no.
We will now take a 5-minute recess and then resume our business.
last meeting they fed us, and somebody said, "What this for?" And I thought,
No, I agree. That's exactly what that's for.
yeah.
When's the last time you said that?
That's
That's the only one I remember.
That's the only one. Yeah. And that's David's doing that. This meeting.
I guess nobody cares about the rest of the agenda?
No. I don't either, so. Ready to go.
Oh, he lives in Franklin, right?
Yeah, but he's part of the.
We're back to elections and appointments.
I was so many of them that spoke for the land rights and everything lived in Franklin. And I'm going, how do you have any land rights? How do you have a big farm?
You can't stand up here and tell me.
Call the meeting back to order. We will now get back to our agenda. Top of page 2 with elections and appointments.
In here?
We've covered,
I have my.
I think 7 out of 29 resolutions have been covered so far, so we got a long way to go. So we'll try to move as fast as we can. Elections and appointments by the county mayor, regional planning commission, term expiring 3/24, 4-year term expiring 3/24, term expiring Dan Crohan, nomination Dan Crohan, term expiring Eddie Sanders, nominee Eddie Sanders, term expiring Brian Richter, nominee Brian Richter. Entertain a motion. Got Commissioner Smith the motion, Commissioner Tunnicliffe the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Emergency Communication District Board of Directors, Districts 1 and 2 representative, term expiring in March of '24. Ken Bryson, nominee Ken Bryson. District 4 and 5 representative, term expiring Presley Hughes, nominee Presley Hughes. Entertain a motion.
Move for approval. Second.
Commissioner Lawler's the motion, Commissioner Jones the second. Dwight Jones. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Health Board Consumer Health Representative, 4-year term expiring in April of '24. Term expiring Cindy Howes, nominee Cindy Howes. Commissioner Smith the motion, Commissioner Osbrooks the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Highway Commission Southwest District Representative, 2-year term expiring in March of '22. Term expiring Wayne Davis, nominee Wayne Davis. Southeast District Representative, term expiring David Coleman, nominee David Coleman. Entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Dwight Jones the motion. The second was Commissioner Rainey. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Industrial Development Board, 6-year term expiring in March of '26. Term expiring Diane Ellis, nominee Diane Ellis. Term expiring Burgess Oliver, nominee Burgess Oliver. Term expiring Dan Parsons, nominee Dan Parsons. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Smith the motion, Commissioner Rainey the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board of Zoning Appeals, 5-year term expiring in March of '25. Term expiring David Osbrooks, nominee David Osbrooks. Entertain a motion. Commissioner Story the motion and Commissioner Lawrence the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the consent agenda. Is it loaded? It's, entertain a motion for the consent agenda. All we have are notaries. Commissioner Story, the motion. Commissioner Commissioner Lawrence, excuse me, the motion. Commissioner Ricky Jones, the second. All in favor of the consent agenda, press your yes button when they get it loaded. Opposed, your no. All right, can you mark Commissioner Herbert the apps? Okay, Commissioner Hudson. All right, anyone wishing to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson. Consent agenda passes. Next, we have zoning. Resolution 3-20-4, A resolution to amend Article 3 of the Williamson County zoning ordinance regarding public notification sign standards. Commissioner Webb? I'm sorry, who was the? Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Planning Commission was 10-4-0 against. Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
As you can see from look here, with different meetings and postings, you could have over 19,000 signs going up across the county, which could be an eyesore as well as a cost. And so this is to amend this article so that we would inform the property owners by notification in the newspaper and sending mail notifications. And planning staff is still here, I hope they are, if you have any questions.
Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
We need to open the public hearing. It's a zoning ordinance amendment.
Oh, there's no public hearing on the agenda, so I didn't know that.
Well, we need to, I don't know this is but you need to open it for public comment.
Okay, did we advertise a public hearing? Are we? Oh, all right, so, okay, so at this time, we'll open a public hearing for public comment on the zoning change. Are there any comments on the zoning change? Going once? Going twice? Public hearing is closed. Thank you. Now, back to the motion. Are there any questions on the resolution? Commissioner Mason.
Question.
Hang on, let me get you.
My understanding.
Now, there you go.
So my understanding is the vote is to not do the signs, but yet, am I correct that each individual landowner that's affected will be sent a direct mailing?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so they will have direct one-on-one contact, not just read it in the paper, hear it on the news, visit a website?
That's correct. Each owner will receive something in the mail notifying them.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Smith.
Question for Mike. Normally, the signs go up on adjacent properties as well. Will adjacent property owners be, they may be affected as well, but if not, would they be notified?
Yes, sir, that's a good question, and the zoning ordinance actually requires adjacent properties as well as affected property owners to be notified, and so adjacent owners would also receive a direct notice.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Let me get my stack of paper straightened out, sorry. Resolution 3-20-2. Resolution requesting intercategory transfer to ensure salary sufficiency in certain major categories. Commissioner Tunnicliffe?
Move for approval.
Is that Commissioner Story? The second. School Board was 10-4-0 against. Education Committee didn't meet. Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
Requesting a transfer of funds, just moving money around and shouldn't affect the budget.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-6. Resolution appropriating and amending the 2019-20 Community Development Department budget by $16,000 for additional mailing costs, revenues to come from unappropriated county general funds. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Smith, the second. Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
As you know from the previous zoning item we just passed, this is the postage expense.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 23-20-7, resolution appropriating and amending the 2019-20 Parks and Recreation Capital Improvement Plan by $195,000, revenues to come from privilege tax. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Jones, the second, I believe. And Budget Committee,
5-4-0 against.
explanation, please.
The bids came in for the indoor sports complex gymnasium a little bit over budget, and so this is moving money from the privilege tax in to pay for this renovation. Parks and Recreation Director is here if anyone has any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-8, resolution appropriating and amending the 2019-20 capital projects budget by $70,000, revenues to come from unappropriated solid waste sanitation fund balance. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Ricky Jones, the second. Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
This is moving funds in order to fix the leaks in the waste management office area.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-9, resolution appropriating and amending the 2019-20 excess risk insurance in various funds, revenues to come from insurance recoveries. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Smith, the second. Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
I will point out that there is a typo in the expenditures in one of the numbers. That will be corrected. It does not require an amendment. So are there any questions on this resolution? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-10, resolution appropriating and amending the 2019-20 juvenile services budget by $20,000, revenues to come from participant fees and detention contracts. Commissioner Aiello?
Move for approval.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Law Enforcement and Public Safety Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
Speaks for itself, really. It's amending the budget with participant fees and detention fees from contracts.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 23-20-11, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute a grant agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of Military and the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency and appropriating and amending the Office of Public Safety 2019-20 budget by $45,547, revenues to come from Homeland Security grants. Commissioner Aiello?
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Osbrooks, the second. Law Enforcement and Public Safety Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
This is authorizing the receipt of grant money to conduct Homeland Security training exercise and to purchase equipment.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-12, resolution appropriating and amending the 2019-20 library budget by $58,991.07, revenues to come from donations, contributions, and fines. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Jones, the second. Library Board,
7-4-0 against,
Budget Committee,
5-4-0 against.
explanation, please.
As you can see, this is amending the budget by taking donations and fines and having the expenditures for media and other materials at the library.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Commissioner Lawrence. Any wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-13, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute a grant agreement with the State of Tennessee Department of State Division of Elections and appropriating and amending the 2019-2020 general fund budget by $1,837.02, revenues to come from grant funds. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
As you can see, this is a grant to allow the election office to purchase a computer, printer, software to maintain compliance with the Help America Vote Act of 2002.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-14, resolution appropriating and amending the 2019-20 County General and Highway Department budget and for educational incentive salary supplements, revenues to come from state funds. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
This is a grant from the state of Tennessee to pay the folks on our staff for completing the Certified County Financial Officer Program.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Commissioner Lathers? Anyone wishing to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-15, resolution appropriating and amending the 2019-20 County Clerk's budget by $7,500, revenues to come from reserve account. Commissioner Webb?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
You can see it's moving $7,500 from the revenue reserve to purchase office equipment, including a renewal kiosk.
Are there any questions? I believe they're going to try to put a kiosk here in the administrative complex. So are there any questions? Assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-16, resolution appropriating and amending the 2019-20 Sheriff's Office budget by $1,500, revenues to come from state litter grant funds. Commissioner Aiello?
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Lathers, the second. Law Enforcement Public Safety Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
This is to reflect that the actual money received in the grant was $1,500 higher than originally anticipated.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-24, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute an amendment with the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation for State Project Number 94 LPLM-4F1-106. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Highway Commission was 5-4-0 against as amended. Property Committee.
7 yes, 0 no.
Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against as amended.
Would you like to present the amendment?
I think the amendment was included in the packet or on the desk tonight. The amendment to Resolution 3-20-24 is as follows. Be it further resolved that the Board of County Commissioners approves and amends the Capital Improvements Fund as follows. The revenue to come from federal through state funding of $2 million with expenditure due to contracts with government agencies, like amount $2 million.
Are there any questions? Second, I'm sorry. Thank you, Commissioner Smith, the second. Is there any questions on the amendment? It's getting late. So. Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote on the resolution, amending the resolution. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Slow down, take a breath. Anyone wishing to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
The amendment passes. Now we're back to the resolution as amended. Any questions on the resolution as amended? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Matt? Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-18, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to enter into a lease agreement with the TNHD Partners, LLC, DBA Harley Davidson of Cool Springs for motorcycles. Commissioner Aiello?
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Smith, the second. Law Enforcement Public Safety Committee?
5-4, 0 against, as amended.
Budget Committee?
5-4-0 against, as amended.
You want to commit the amendment, please?
Sure. As amended, replacing all references of Harley Davidson of Cool Springs to Moonshine Harley Davidson.
Second.
Commissioner Smith, the second. Any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor of the amendment, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
The amendment passes. Now we're back to the resolution as amended. Any questions on the resolution as amended? If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-19, resolution permitting the location of Blue Star Memorial Marker at the Williamson County Administrative Complex to honor the men and women that have served in united in the nation's armed forces. Commissioner Story.
A motion to approve.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Property Committee.
7 yes, 0 no.
Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
Yeah, this is to place a Blue Star Memorial marker in front of the administrative complex, and so motion to approve.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wants to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-20, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to grant a right-of-way easement to Vulcan Material Company. Commissioner Story.
A motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Highway Commission was 5-4-0 against. Property Committee.
7 yes, 0 no.
Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
Yeah, this is shared property, and so basically providing access to the property through a easement for access.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wishing to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-21, resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to execute an interlocal agreement with the Williamson County Hospital District, DBA Williamson Medical Center, and the City of Spring Hill for emergency ambulance services. Commissioner Lothers?
Move for approval. Second.
Commissioner Mason, the second. Law Enforcement Public Safety Committee,
5-4-0 against.
Budget Committee,
5-4-0 against.
explanation, please.
Obviously attached is the interlocal agreement, which lays out the purpose, authority, designated provider and service area, services, ambulance units, facilities, et cetera, for Williamson County to take over, provide emergency medical services in Spring Hill. We have some Spring Hill people here. I'd love to hear their comments. Hello, Commissioner Mason.
Are there any questions? Commissioner Webb.
I just want to note, Mr. Chair, there's been a long time working on this, and so a good job to Alan, Bill, and Todd. I think they're all three still here. Thank you very much. It's for our southern part of the county. It's taken a long time to get done, so I appreciate their hard work on this.
Thank you. Commissioner Mason.
And I will add, there was a lot of confusion whether or not this would cover also the Murray County side of Spring Hill, or if the ambulance service would stop at the county line. This does include the entire city of Spring Hill, and that's all included in the interlocal agreement. So this should enhance ambulance services to all of Spring Hill and hopefully provide better access and medical care for our residents.
Thank you. Any other comments? Question. Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, Ms. Anderson.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-23. Resolution accepting military leave policies that incorporate the special military leave policy adopted in 2002 and separately addressing leave for military reservists. Commissioner Ayala.
Move for approval.
Second.
Commissioner Smith, the second. Law Enforcement Public Safety Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Human Resources Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Budget Committee.
4-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
This is a resolution that reconciles two separate policies, the first being one that was a special military leave policy enacted after September 11th that provides for special military leave for up to 6 months, during which time a county employee could receive certain benefits. This is to include that provision and updating it in the personal policy manual for the military leave policy to provide greater clarity and consistency between the two policy statements.
Thank you. We also have Mike here from Human Resources if we have any questions. Appreciate you staying so long.
Oh, my goodness.
Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. Resolution 3-20-25. Resolution authorizing the Williamson County Mayor to grant a non-exclusive easement and temporary construction easement to HB&TS Utility District of Williamson County, Tennessee, for the installation of a water line. Commissioner Story.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Dwight Jones, the second. Property Committee.
7 yes, 0 no.
Budget Committee.
5-4-0 against.
Explanation, please.
As stated, it's to provide access to, as through easement for the installation of a water line.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I assume you're ready to vote. If you're in favor, press your yes button. Opposed, your no. Commissioner Mason. Anyone wish to change your vote, do so at this time. Record the vote, please.
22 yes, 0 no.
Resolution passes. I believe that concludes our agenda. Entertain a motion.
Second.
We are adjourned.